Hey everybody, Ryan here from Music City Live. Welcome to the show. I'm here with André Doucette. André is recording and live mixing engineer, production manager, and technical director of the El Mocambo in Toronto, and soon to be husband.
Yeah, I'm getting married this year.
André, welcome. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think I got a quick picture of your soon to be better half somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Hiding right there. Yeah. There it is. There she is.
Yes.
And she was off on her bachelorette, I saw online.
Yeah, she got back last night. Yeah, I haven't actually seen her yet because I came in last night, so we have to wait till Thursday. But
there we go.
Yeah.
It looked like she had a good time.
Oh yeah.
I've never been to Colombia. It's but I got some people who used to work here that were from there, and they used to tell me it was good times down there. So.
She said it was stunning. Yeah, it was really beautiful. Yeah.
Well, so there you go. We met originally through my brother.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, through Kyle. So yeah, I was we could even go back further. We could, our dads used to know each other back in the day.
That's true.
They both are bass players. They were both kind of in the band circuit. And then when I returned to St. Thomas, London area after my time in the States, which we'll get into. I was basically looking for what the next thing was going to be. And my dad actually mentioned, he's like, they have like a whole thing going on at the PA shop. You should go talk to those guys. So I went and talked to your dad, and then he said you should talk to Kyle, and one thing led to another. Yeah. Yeah,
man. That was, those were some good times for sure. When Kyle took over the studio and you guys were doing all that.
Yeah.
Those were exciting times even for me. Like I wasn't as involved in it, but it was still a really cool thing because it was new for me. I was doing some like home studio, beat making and stuff like that. But being able to kind of sit in and see sort of the bigger studio vibe for me was kind of cool at the time.
Yeah, it's always a fun experience for sure. Yeah.
So early days for you. So you came from like a musical family of sorts, right?
Yeah. As I mentioned, my dad was a bass player. He's actually really quite an accomplished guitar player now. You guys got a catalog of songs he'll sing you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So he still plays regularly. So I grew up definitely in a musical household. My dad brought a piano home for my sister one year. He got it for like $400 at an auction. It was an old Heinzmann from like 1926 or something, and he refinished it. And so there was always music around. He was always showing me the guitar that he just bought that he was hiding from my mom behind the door.
as many guitar players do.
Yeah, exactly. And I grew up really kind of sitting in front of the PA systems, just listening to him rehearse in the basement. I think my first memory of music was my discovery of how to use the CD player. And he had the big Serwin Vegas, and I used to just plug in records and just turn them. I think I was probably 4 years old. I'd turn them up loud and sit in front of the Serwin Vegas and just be. I was just enthralled with the sound and just this illusionary picture of something that was coming at you. I didn't make any sense. I just knew that I liked it. Right.
Absolutely.
And then he used to collect a lot of. He's still to this day always pursuing. The best speakers he can find, the best amps, the best this, the best that. He's got a whole rack full of EQs and compressors. I don't even know if he knows how to use half of it.
He picked up a Soundcraft board from me.
Yeah, like what, a 32.8? Yeah, a big Soundcraft console, and then he looks at me and goes, "Hook it up." I'm like, all right, so patch it all in, and then I come back a couple weeks later, and everything's been undone. And he's like, "I can't get it to work." I'm like, "Well, because you unplugged everything." And he's still wanting to use the hard disk recorder as well, so just having to show him how to do that. Computers are staying out of it. So,
that's awesome.
Yes, but he had a console. It was a Fostex 2412. I remember being a little toddler, and I would kind of like reach up and I could feel the knobs and the faders, and I was like, "Oh, this is really cool." Being a kid, of course, like buttons were cool. So anyway, that was like, I vividly remember that as my first time with a console. And then when I got to be about in high school, 15, 16, started a band.
Oh, we got a photo of that, right?
Yeah.
We got some photos of your dad too.
I think it's there.
That's the band there.
So this is the loft above my garage that my dad turned into a rehearsal studio. My parents were extremely supportive. That's a big part of the reason I feel like I was able to really do this.
Yeah.
It's challenging enough as it is, but without families, supporting and encouraging, it could be even more challenging.
I talk about that a lot.
Yeah,
like in the different pods. There's
because everybody faces that, like get a real job, that sort of thing, and it's really challenging. But sorry, go back one. So, that too. So this is the first inception of that. That's the Fostex 2412.
There it is.
I literally spent my college fund that we had saved, I think it was like $5,000 at the time, on a hard disk Fostex 2448 hard disk recorder. And just kind of, we spent the summer renovating. We drywalled, insulated the whole upper stairs. We didn't have a heater. So the funny thing is like when I was rehearsing up there with my friend's band, like my bands and stuff in the summer, we'd be like, "Dad, it's freezing up here. I can't move my hands." So my dad was a roofer at the time. And so he'd fire up this big roofing torch and he just blast it up the stairwell, like, and just heat the whole room in like a second.
Wow.
We're talking like, what is that?
Way to go,
2,500 BTUs of just pure flame. Just shoot. It was comical, man. And then have you ever had like an instant temperature change on your skin and you get itchy? It was just hilarious.
He made it work though.
We made it work, man. So we didn't have a heater, and then in the summer we didn't. It had a big bay window we would open, and we started off just kind of rehearsing up there, and then I got interested in the idea of maybe making some recordings of this stuff. And we didn't have phones back then to be able to just plug a mic into. Like I wanted to try something real, so we got a computer with an audio card. We made a mix. We sent it in as a 2-track, and it sounded like complete garbage, but we accomplished something. And then from there, we decided to develop and make it, let's set up a wall, let's get a multi-track recorder, let's do that. I would think I was about 16, 17 at the time, and I just started printing off business cards, recording studio, $10 an hour. I think they were tipping me with cases of beer. I was recording all the punk bands in my town, in my high schools. Everybody just kind of started coming over, and that's just kind of grew from there.
And this is when you
So this is
digital?
This is when I regretfully now sold the analog console, because it was a really cool desk and it sounded good, but I had learned that computers were coming into the fold of things.
Yep.
And so I sold it, bought the Yamaha 01V. And when I first bought it, it didn't work so well. And that was actually my first, I like to toss myself to the wolves. So rather than like bring it to a shop, I just decided to open this thing up and see if I can diagnose the issue.
Right.
Which I did. I actually found a capacitor that the solder had cracked around it. So I just dabbed it with a soldering gun, and it worked like a charm.
Wow.
So, I generally always took risks like that. I was always I'd rather just explore and see what happens.
Well,
rather than
part of the journey, man.
Yeah, I didn't like to play it safe, But my dad taught me how to solder when I was really young, so
That's something that even students coming out of schools now don't know how to solder. I got a couple guys working here. We were doing an install at Centennial Hall here in London, and they had gone through school for audio, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna put these patch panels on the wall, and they're like, okay. Yeah. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't know how to solder? Yeah. So I had to bring in Jeff Warder. Shout out to Jeff, who was the professor at Fanshawe for years for the post program.
Use it as a class.
And Jeff came in and started showing these guys how to solder.
Cool.
But absolutely.
It's so crucial. I mean, I don't think I've ever bought an XLR cable in my life. I made everything.
Yeah.
Every quarter patch, everything. Because my dad, one day, I was very young. I was probably maybe 10 years old.
Yeah. That's about when I learned.
He's like, use a fan. Don't breathe it in. And this is how you do it. And, a handful of blisters on your fingers later, you start to figure it out.
Truth be told, I learned how to solder literally probably like originally where this room was in electronics.
I remember.
And years ago in the 80s. And there was
as well. Or maybe it was at the top of the stair landing. Anyway.
Yeah. But in the 80s, when I was super young, this was in electronics. We used to build lighting control equipment. So somewhere within 5 feet of where I'm sitting right now is where I learned to solder at the same age, at 10 years old.
Yeah. It's a valuable life skill.
Totally.
It's like wrapping cable.
Yeah.
You know, I always say to young guys when they come to the club and they're trying to learn something, like, learn how to do this, and you won't be looking for work.
No, totally.
You know, maybe you won't graduate from that, but that will at least get you paid. It'll get you called. Wrap cable.
Yeah, push cases, wrap cable.
Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
do it correctly.
100%.
Yeah. So, this photo here. This is the beginnings of my formal education, as we'll call it. I had a hard time swallowing the price tag for something like Oyart or Fanshawe, and at that point I had already worked my way through the beginnings of it. You know, I guess I was a little bit kind of hard-headed, thinking, oh, you know, like I already know what an EQ is, I know what a compressor is, I know how to patch, etc. So I needed a kind of a different approach, and I through all kinds of, how did this happen? So my sister started writing with a guy named Skip Prokop,
Okay.
who you would know as the drummer for Lighthouse.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So they were doing some writing sessions together because my sister was singing karaoke at a bar, and Skip and Don Baker were sitting there because they were partners on a studio at the time, and they're like, wow, she's really great. Like, we should write with her. And so that's where they kind of entered the fold, and I developed a relationship with Don Baker. Great guy. He's been, you know, in and out of my life for many, many years. He's just one of the true gems. Anyway, he had this studio, and you know, like all studio owners now that I see, everybody's just trying to figure out how to make ends meet. And he offered up the idea. He was developing a private schooling program where he would take 2 students a year, and it wasn't very much. It was like $10,000 for 4 to 5 days a week in the evenings, where literally we had one-on-one working attention with an engineer, Mike Stewart, great guy, awesome guitar player. He's the one that really taught me digital audio.
Cool.
So yeah, it was one-on-one with him. And, you know, the first 2 weeks of the class was, okay, we're going to take X amount of your budget that you budgeted for class, and we're going to build you a computer. And this is how you build a computer. You need this, you need this, you need this, you need this. Let's put it all together. Now this is how you update software and take care of a computer. So there was a lot of this really, I don't know, for me, I feel like I gained more from that than I would have gained from a class of 30, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it was, you know, after a few weeks, you're just in the fold. They had sessions, they had studios, people coming in. There was even times I got paid. You know, they'd send me up to Ottawa to record a native drum circle, and it's like, hey, we'll just take it off of what you owe us for the tuition. It's like, great, you know. So it gave you an opportunity to work it off. Like, it was I did spend about 4 weeks transferring DAT tapes, though. I have to say that was probably the worst part of the whole thing. And that was also, I forgot to mention, I did intern at this studio for my last year of high school.
Oh, okay.
So during the internship, he lived in Union, so he'd pick me up at Parkside. We'd shoot out to his studio, and then he'd drive me home. So it was a great relationship there.
That's cool.
Yeah, so that was really my learnings of digital and how to deal with clients and how to run sessions, that sort of thing.
Sweet. Yeah. While we're still in this folder, essay, you want to pop over to the photos of his dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, your dad knew my dad back in the day.
Yeah.
From what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, those were some good times back then.
Yeah. Well, you know, my dad was always the.
Him and my dad had the same bass.
The Rickenbacker.
My dad, the Rickenbacker. My dad had the red one though.
Yeah. My dad has a terrible story about that bass. He bought it. He'd spent all this time saving all this money. He bought it, set it on a chair, and his buddy came over within like a couple of weeks of owning it. His buddy came over, and I think he was drunk or something, but he just like leaped down into the chair, not seeing that the bass was right there, and just snapped the neck in half.
Oh my god.
You know, my dad like saved and scrimped to buy this thing, right? But anyway, yeah, he you know, it all started with my old man for sure. He's the great inspiration. Same with my sister. You know, he was always encouraging us to, like, here's the thing, you know, I wanted a dirt bike. He didn't want to give me a dirt bike. He bought me a guitar. You know, and I appreciate that. I'm still to go through this life, knock on wood, I haven't broken any bones yet. So, you know, part of me, because all my friends did, wanted to play hockey. They didn't really want to afford to go through the struggles of hockey. I'm a terrible athlete anyway, so it's probably for the better. They save themselves a lot of money. But, you know, it was anything to do with music. If I wanted it, he would find a way to make it happen. You know?
Do you think that played a big role in your musical journey, is having that support?
100%. Yeah. I think it's, I also think it's like, it's important to listen to your parents too, when it's like, you need to have other things going on too. You know, music is absolutely an incredible place to be, and it's an incredible thing to experience, but it can be inconsistent. It can be very challenging, especially from a monetary perspective. As everybody knows, it's the oldest story in the book. Mm-hmm. You know, for me, like my dad and my mom, they both grew up doing trades. You know, there wasn't a weekend or a summer that I wasn't on roofs or painting houses or all these different things. So I always had a carpentry side to me that I fell back on numerous times in my time so far, and eventually probably will again. You know, just hopefully this time it's on something that I purchased. You know, I'll buy a house and I'll flip it or whatever. But it's always something that, like, I always had a contingency, especially during COVID. You know, it literally got me through COVID. I went back to framing houses. It was something I did, and I enjoyed doing it, and it was all right. But I like music more.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
your sister is doing a lot of really cool stuff right now, Danny. She's got a lot going on, and she started working with Carl Wolf.
Yeah,
we were talking earlier. Yeah. I knew from back in the day, and
yeah. My sister's she's a steamboat, man. She honestly, she's a massive inspiration.
There she is.
Yeah, there she is.
There's your dad too.
Yeah. And I was mixing sound that day. Oh wait, yeah. I was doing the sound that day, and she was performing. Yeah, no, she's phenomenal. I mean, you know, we started together, you know, playing instruments. Like, my whole family is really musical. Like, we used to have these big, we used to have these big family gatherings, and everybody played violin or guitar or something. So it was always like a big hoedown, you know, big circle of musicians jamming along. Awesome. Yeah, it was great. She really, you know, she's opened doors for me too. Like, she's just a very outgoing, vibrant person that just, it's just great to be around. But as a singer and a songwriter, I mean, she's you know, done amazing things. I haven't met anybody in my career that can craft a song as good and quickly as she can.
Wow.
Honestly. I know it sounds biased because she's my sister, but I wouldn't say it at all if I didn't believe it. And, you know, she can hear a quick melody and write you a song.
That's awesome.
You know, give me a concept. Okay, cool. And she's just really, really gifted that way.
That is a gift, man.
Yeah. Vocally, you know, God, in the last 5 years even, I've heard her voice develop so much, and she has just gone far beyond what she was earlier in her career. She had a great voice before, but she's a powerhouse now, man.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Not only that, she's, you know, got tons of dexterity. She's in the gym constantly. She can run for days, and it really helps from a performance standpoint.
Absolutely.
You know, when you're running around on stage and singing everything, it's a lot.
I see it, man. I follow her on socials, and she's definitely killing it, man. Like, on all those things.
Consistent. Yeah. So she you know, she's like anybody going through the industry. She's gotten tossed around by labels that don't know enough of what they're doing to appreciate what they have, and she ended up in the last little while signing as, I believe, the first artist for Carl Wolf's label.
Oh wow,
4 a.m. Records.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he's been you know, amazing to her, and she has to him as well. You know, they're collaborating in the studio. She's helping him with things. He's helping her with things. It's a really, really nice, mutual, beneficial relationship. And he brought her down to LA and signed her a publishing deal with I believe it's Cobalt Publishing. And yeah, she's just, you know, really, in my opinion, she's just getting started. She just released a song with Sugar Jesus. He's He's based in Toronto, but he's got a huge following in the UK. And, they had like 60, 70,000 streams in a few days. So
Yeah, that's incredible.
It's called Hello Shadow. It's a great song. And then Fire Alarm with Carl Wolf was... it was top 40 in Canada. It was even beating out, like on certain stations. Z103 was really supporting it a lot.
I love that. They were playing Z103, I think, in the gym one day, and she was working out, and she posted it on social media. I'm like, that's when you know.
No, that was separate. That was the Planet Fitness.
Oh, playlist.
Playlist. Their universe.
Okay.
And I was just like, oh man, like that is such a random thing because it's not related to any radio station. That's picked up strictly on. I'm not sure. Like, is it probably the publishing company handled it,
probably,
or the publicists. Yeah,
got a hold of somebody in
very
the programming.
smart because I work out at Planet Fitness, and I'm always listening to what's going on there, and you're always seeing stuff. So
yeah, that. I saw that post. I was like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and I swear to God, maybe 2 weeks before that happened, I had thought about it. And I was like, it'll be really cool when I'm in here and I just see Danielle's song randomly up on there. Because I saw Dubs' song, and I knew those guys a little bit. I was working on their studio, but I saw them, and I'm like, yeah, there's some Canadian boys that made it. Awesome. Yeah, good for them. And I'm like, it'll be cool when Danielle's song's on there. And then a couple weeks later, there it was. She saw her post. I was like, no way. Yeah. It's really cool. Yeah, honestly, like just lots of little blessings, man. Like this industry can be really challenging and really tough, and I went through all the emotions of, am I good enough? Is this enough? All those things that even musicians, it's all art, right?
Yeah.
We're all artists, right? Just my art and your art is involving with technical things, and their art is with, a musician or instrument or a melody, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's been a lot of, sometimes big lows, but then big highs, and it's always exciting. And I've gotten to a place now where I don't ever get comfortable.
Okay. Because
I think comfort, they say comfort's a killer. I don't know about that, but comfort can be, you let your guard down, and I think that can be a really difficult in this industry because you just never know what's going to happen.
No.
As we all know.
And one of the things I've always said is that if you not stop, but if you slow down, if you get comfortable, like you said, and you think that you're good, you're ahead of the game, and the minute you do that, there's someone else that's growing faster than you. They're pushing harder, So, and I say that in business all the time, unless you're growing, you're shrinking, because if you're not growing, someone else is, and eventually they're going to blow past you.
True.
And that's kind of in the same vein as that, right?
Yeah, and I always had two kind of analogies that I kind of live by. It's like no matter how good you are, there's always somebody better.
Yeah.
And strive for perfection, knowing you'll never achieve it. To me, those are mantras that I kind of live with because it's like, I always try to be as best as I can. I always try to do the best that I possibly can, but I don't expect perfection, and I don't expect to be the best. Because to me, it's like, who was it? Anthony Hopkins, he said, accept everything and expect nothing. I really like that because it's like, you're setting yourself up for these self-inflicted disappointments if you don't reach the things that you're trying to reach for. And I think that, you have to accept everything that comes in, accept every situation, accept every grumpy egomaniac you have on stage, accept every broken preamp, like accept everything and just work around it, and just just don't expect everything to just be perfect or work or I always say this to people coming into the club. I'm like, yeah, this place is brand new and I've got it decked out, but make sure you test things. Always test things. You can't don't expect anything. And then that kind of falls under the career. As I said, don't get uncomfortable. For me, I always found like as quickly as things come, things can leave. And, the only thing that you ever truly have is really yourself. Opportunities come and go, money comes and goes, relationships come and go. And I think it's just important to always just be self-reflecting on you and who you are and keeping that. And when I say don't get comfortable as well, that can relate to career things. It's like, one day I'm doing this and it's the greatest thing ever. And then the next year it's like, that's gone. And, you can process that negatively, or you can look at it as, okay, well, that was something, and what's next?
Speaking of which, what happened? Yeah. So you went to and did the schooling with Don,
Mm-hmm.
and then what happened after that? You kind of broke into wanting to do some studio stuff.
Yeah. So, well, I had one of those blessings after that. So through my sister, actually, she was randomly, because she was modeling for years, so she was always coming back and forth to Toronto, and she was at Fresh for Life on Spadina, and the guys from 30 Seconds to Mars walked in, Jared and Shannon, his brother, and for obvious reasons, my sister's attractive, they decided to talk to her. So they're just having a chat, and they became friends, and they invited her out to the concert, and she's hanging around with them and watching the concert, and she overheard that they were looking for a guitar tech. And, being the amazing sister that she is, she immediately threw my hat and my name into the hat, and they were receptive to it. And they're like, well, why don't you bring him to Cleveland? We're playing there in a couple of days, and we'll have a chat with them and see maybe there's something there. So she comes home from Toronto, and she's like, you'll never guess who I met. And the funny thing is like, I'll admit this now, like, I didn't know who they were. I did it. And I think that's a part of like what,
that's awesome.
Because starstruckism can work against you, right? Like,
absolutely.
Like, I don't take photos. The most recent photo I took was with David Foster, and I felt really uncomfortable asking for it.
I know what you mean.
For me, I learned very quickly that it's like, if you want to be in the cool kids club, don't be like all the fans, respectfully. Like, we love the fans, yes, absolutely, but it was really like, just be cool, just be you. Don't bug people for things like that. If they're gonna happen, let them happen naturally.
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't even begin to list the amount of people that I've met that I do not have photos with. And so you could call me a liar, and I'm like,
no,
okay.
I'm the same, man. Yeah. I'm the same. I got signed posters from some of the bands I worked with in the early 90s, but I mean, I've worked with tons of people that I don't have pictures with at all, because I was that guy. Like, even when Corey Hart was here down the Charterhouse in the studio in 2019 during the Junos, I kind of, nudged Aaron. I'm like, hey man, let's get a photo. Let's get a photo taken with him, And it was sort of Aaron. It was a real impromptu kind of, hey, Corey, let's get a photo. And it just sort of happened.
Well, sometimes like if it's known that it's like a one-day thing, or it's circumstantial like that, where it's like, hey, we just so happen to be here. This is the only opportunity you're going to get. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
But for me, I was looking at it as I could have a long-term working relationship with these people. So I didn't want to come off as like that in the beginning,
No, that's smart.
Also, it's not like phones were so great on the cameras back then. I mean, it was.
That's true.
We were on flip phones and Blackberries, like the first edition of a Blackberry.
I looked.
It's crap.
I downloaded. I have one Blackberry that still has battery power, and I downloaded the photos from it like maybe a month or two ago. And you're right, they're so grainy. They're horrible. They're horrible. They're small. They're grainy.
Yeah. So it was never a thing to be like, oh, I'm going to capture this moment. It's like, no, you used your eyes and you just enjoyed. Yeah.
So 30 Seconds to Mars.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Getting on that, I am a little bit regretful, thinking like, as a 38-year-old man now, being like, man, it'd be cool to have photos of all that stuff. Like, I wish I had been a little more proactive. Like my fiance, she's very photo centric.
Okay.
She loves taking photos. We go on vacation. I got to buy a new phone. It's just full. So anyway, so yeah, 30 Seconds to Mars. So basically, started off, met them a couple weeks later, trying to sort out like paperwork, logistics, visas, that kind of stuff. Got all that sorted out, and went down there. And at the time, they originally wanted me to be their guitar tech, because I have actually luthiered and built some guitar. I was a guitar player. I knew how to set things up, I knew how to file frets, I knew how to set truss rods, all that kind of stuff. I could tune a guitar really well, So I was like, cool, I could fill that position. I should mention this was right at the end of the release of their first record, just before they released their second record, A Beautiful Lie. So 2005, 2006 type of thing. So anyway, yeah, I met them down there. I was in New York, was the first day. And they're basically like, look, we hired a guitar tech, but there's lots of stuff to do. So I basically unofficially, looking back on it, I was unofficially like the second tour manager in a way. It was like first one up in the morning, off the bus, running through the venue. Where are the dressing rooms? Where's the nearest vegan food? Where's, all these different things. Where's the merch going to be set up? Where's the load in? First one off the bus, last one on the bus at the end of the night sort of thing, right? Lots of logistics and details. When we're doing the radio shows, we're doing the merch signing, so organizing the security or the police escorts. Jared had this habit of always wanting to like climb to really high places. So I would map out like, okay, you're going to go over here. You're going to sneak by the security here. You're going to make your way to that ladder there. You're going to climb up. There's a hatch. Okay. And then you're going to get up onto the roof and you're going to go over here and you're going to be able to hang off of this thing and sing over to the crowd. So, things like that.
That wasn't in the original job description.
No. It was fun though. Honestly, what I loved about it was just like how sporadic it was. Looking back on it, it's like, yeah, sure, it would have been great to be doing their front of house or something, but I had zero live experience at that point. Like I really had no business doing that. But what I was really good at was, finding answers and finding solutions. And I learned probably the most important skills I had ever learned for life just from those few years with those guys.
Wow.
Even the first handful of months, the tour manager, I'd be asking him all kinds of questions. Just, when they'd look at me, be like, hey, 10-second rule. And you go, what's that? They go, just think about it 10 seconds before you ask me the damn question. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it was like, oh, okay. Lessons in life. Like, I just passed that on to somebody recently. I'm like, hey, buddy, 10-second rule. Just think about it. You already know the answer. Like just think about it.
It's such a good one.
It's great.
It is.
Like all types of things like that, there was a lot of stuff. And honestly, there was a time where, so I was with them on the road. The first year was pretty well almost an entire year. We took like 2 weeks off at Christmas. And then I had a little bit of time in between. Made my way back. We did a stint of radio shows, that sort of thing. And then I eventually made my way to LA because after the first leg of the first tour with Jared, when he found out how into and educated I was at the time on studio stuff, he was like, hey, I'm buying this new house and it would be really cool. We should talk about putting together a studio in there. Mm-hmm. So I said, yeah, like that's going to be 6 months from now, but yeah, let's do it, So I remember helping him move before the second leg of the tour, the following year. I went a couple weeks early because they were closing down the house that they had recorded it was where they lived when they recorded, I should say because Jared and Shannon often shared a domicile. They were brothers. They were always working together on stuff. So they had big houses with separate wings pretty well. Sure. So yeah, we basically closed up shop there and moved into a house that he had bought on Fredonia Drive, which is in the hills. He's no longer there, so I can openly say that. And it was Babyface's studio.
Oh, wow.
Or Babyface's house.
That's incredible.
Previously. So
what good energy in that place.
It was really cool. Yeah. It had a really nice saltwater pool out the back. It was just this big, cliffside hill house, all white plaster. The whole thing was just white plaster. Lots of natural windows and everything. And I have some photos of that I shared with you.
Yeah. Let's pull those up.
So when we first got there, the studio, so there was a studio space in there that was, treated and
1891 there
had some
is where it starts.
Yeah. So it was treated and it had some so that's the living room just outside of the studio. This was during rehearsals and demoing for the third record, This Is War. So at that time, Matt Wachter, the bass player, was no longer with us. I'm not sure. I think, well, he was thinking like, he was ready to get off the road for a while. He didn't want to tour as heavily as these guys did, because we toured heavy. Like heavy.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, it was
2 weeks off at Christmas and then
it was on. It was like 5 days on, maybe a day off in Succassis, New York, as we like to call it. So it was heavy. Anyway, that was Tomo. So he was playing bass at the time. This was just demoing. That's a JMP there, and I noticed that you have a JMP here, and that's the first amp and only amp I ever felt a shock off of, because
this was Mike Turner from Our Lady Pieces amp.
Oh, cool.
I bought that off him.
I got a story with him too. That's funny.
Yeah.
Because we were playing radio shows, and I had a Detroit Tigers shirt on,
yeah,
a vintage one, and he came up to me. He's like, "I have to have that shirt," because I guess he's a huge Detroit Tigers fan. And I'm just like running around with a radio, just like, well, who the fuck are you? Like, what do you mean? And then I realized he's the guitar player.
Give you my shirt.
And I was like, I'm not just gonna give you my shirt. It was a really cool jersey. Anyway, I had schemed it in my mind. I'm like, I'm gonna ask him for a guitar. I'll give him this shirt for a guitar. And just as I was approaching him for it, they were hopping into a bus and taking off to another show. And then recently they were at the Mocambo, so I had a laugh with him about it. I'm like, I don't have the shirt anymore, but that was my plan. Anyway,
that's funny.
Yeah, I felt a shock off that JMP, man. I was saying I'm happy it was a 50 watt, not 100. Probably would have stopped my heart. That's Flood. So Flood was the producer on the record, and so. Anyway, getting back to the studio a little bit, we ordered a ton of gear. Basically, Jared said to me, he's like, and none of that unfortunately is featured in these pictures, but he said to me, how much did we, had his accountants, how much did we spend on studio time for the last record? It was like shy of like $500,000, right?
Wow.
It was a lot. And he goes, and Jared was always just, he's brilliant. I always say to people, like, you really want to know how to run your music career, just get to know what that guy does, because he had his own touring company, his own publishing company, everything was under his umbrella. And then he hired business managers to work for him. He never worked for them, even with management and everything. He was very, you work for me.
That's cool.
He was never giving them too much, which is very smart, because a lot of people get taken advantage of that way, right?
Absolutely.
So he's, in my opinion, he's one of the most brilliant minds in the industry. Maybe that becomes because he was an actor first,
Could be. Yeah.
I think he's a great actor. I think he's an even better musician, to be honest. Like he really is an excellent performer. Anyway, so we figured out, we're like, we can get a brand new Mac Pro, we can get all these microphones, we can get 1176s, APIs, all these different stuff. And what's the grand total? About $268,000. Okay, let's go with that. So got everything wired up, the whole house. I had I had guys come in with concrete drills, drilling holes into this massive concrete plaster walls, feeding multi-core cable down so we could have analog patch bays throughout the house. And I basically said to him, like, because he was like, well, maybe we'll go to the studio to track the drums. And I was like, just put some baffles up on this wall, because it's a big reverby kind of cool space. I was like, we can control that and just do them right here. Play a drum track, go take a swim. have some fun with it, right? So, so essentially we ordered all this gear. In the meantime, we were using a 002 with I was going to Guitar Center every week, picking out like 5 or 6 high-end microphones, trying to find the right mic for his voice. And
what did you settle on? Do you remember?
It was a combination between. It was a combination, like some of it was done on an NT1.
Really?
Yeah.
I still have an NT1.
Yeah, it's an excellent microphone because it could handle the pressure. A lot of mics changed their tonal structure because he's a very guttural singer. He has a very loud voice, and yeah, a lot of he really liked the NT1. Surprisingly, he wrote.
Yeah, shout out the road.
Yeah, we had like the tube on there. We had U47s, 251s, C12s. We had everything. We had the giant blue tube microphones. yeah, that into an API into an 1176 was a lot of it. For
That's
some of the
cool.
darker stuff and the backups, I honestly, I left about halfway through the more important stuff. Like there were reasons beckoning me back home, and whether it was the best decision or not, I decided my time was up and I needed to focus on my family and things. My parents had gone through a separation. There was some illness going around. There was a lot of sadness. So
Time to go home.
yeah, I just, plus I had some bitching dental pain and no health plan or anything down there. My visa had basically run out. And I was just, all signs were pointing to it's just time to make a change. And so I reluctantly, I didn't know at the time that I was going to, but I basically said to the guys, look, I really need to go home for a couple of weeks. I need to kind of sort some stuff out. And when I got there, it just kind of hit me, and I thought, I need to stay. And I remember getting a call from Jared. I'll remember it very vividly. I know he was really disappointed, but it was just, I just felt like I had to do it, and I've seen him a handful of times since then, and there's no bad blood or anything. He was. I should mention what a great guy. Yeah. Honestly, like the guy gave me a room in his house and treated me like a brother, like family for a long time. I slept on the bunk right underneath him, and he played pranks on me and stuff. You know what I mean? Like it was
That's
just
awesome.
Yeah, he's just great. Like I learned so much from those guys. I had some of the best memories of my life, and what I loved was how much confidence he bestowed in me, even though I really was just a kid at the time. I was 21 to 22, 23 kind of thing. And
those are magical years though, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially to experience the stuff that you did. I mean, what was it like? What was it like seeing that side of it? Like at that age, because you were touring, like there's pictures of the bus and stuff, and so like you got to experience all that, even though you weren't technically in the band, like obviously, but you got to experience all that. Like what was seeing all that like?
It was really surreal, man. I mean,
and afterwards, like thinking back, was it what you thought it would be?
I had never really put much thought into it, to be honest. I mean, it's so much more. It was like, honestly, that time with them isn't what made me a good engineer or made me good at any of that. It's what made me a good production manager. It's what makes me a good people person, or how to deal with stressful situations, because every day was a new set of wolves I'm getting tossed to, and figure it out. It's the ultimate way to learn. Just figure it out. And I was bit with that bug that, I feel like I can do anything at least relatively well. So
those are great skills to have though, man.
Yeah.
Especially in what you're doing now with live music and all that. Like having those, make it work troubleshooting skills.
Yeah.
It is literally the difference between a lead A level tech and a B or C tech. Like having that ability is huge.
Yeah. Half of my day is usually solving issues, like, just knowing the systems, knowing, what to look out for. What's that sound? Oh, that's your phone in your pocket. How many times that's happened? Man, what's this sound? Blah, blah, blah. I'm like, is that a Strat? Yeah, not shielded. Okay, yeah, your phone in your pocket? Yeah. Take it out of your pocket. Like that's the RF slowly nuking you,
Nice. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, the most surreal part is that, I was essentially fresh out of high school, like sort of. I'm a couple years out of high school. In high school, my favorite bands were The Used, My Chemical Romance, all that, emo punk kind of stuff that was really hot in 2004 and 5. And not even a year into, a little after, over a year, I'm on the road with all these guys. I've got tour laminates from The Used, My Chemical Romance, Audio Slave, all these different bands that we were with my face on the back of them. That is just like, if there's anything that to me proved the existence of as what my dad calls thought and circumstance, or as other people call it, manifestation, or, aligning, universal alignments, things like that. That was a real wow moment for me, because it was like, I used to be in math class scribbling, just thinking like, man, it'd be awesome to know these guys or meet these guys or whatever. And, I even liked AFI. Like I was into this weird, punky, emo-y shit, but it's great stuff. But, 16, 17 years old, I'm listening to AFI, right? And I remember we had a party at Jared's house. We had a barbecue, and I'm sitting at a table, just kind of relaxing, having a beer, and I'm looking around at this table with these three guys that I'm sitting with. I'm like, these guys look pretty cool. I'm chatting them up a little bit and talking. And I'm like, hey, you guys in a band? They're like, yeah. I'm like, cool. I'm like, I'm actually, putting together his studio here. You want to see it? They're like, yeah. We go in. I get them into a different situation. I look at them. I'm like, are you guys AFI? They're like, yeah. I'm like, well, I was like, what? just these random sporadic kind of meetings, Anthony Kiedis, so, he has been openly about, he went through addictions and things like that, and alcoholism, I think maybe it was, I don't know. Anyway, so he went through the AA program. So did Shannon, the drummer, for 30 Seconds to Mars years ago when they were younger. This is public knowledge. So they're still best of friends. Wow. And they still support the AA program. So they would actually go every couple of weeks and just meet with the people that were there.
Oh, wow.
As a celebrity support, you're not alone in this. Everybody at all different walks of life do this.
That's really cool.
And they invited me along a couple times. So, it was really interesting just getting to know that guy a little bit,
Absolutely.
I remember once I walked into we were having that same party, and Anthony was sitting on the couch, very quiet, just very, very, just to himself kind of guy. And I'm walking through, and I look at him, and he goes, and I was like, oh, Anthony Kiedis just waved at me. That's cool. Hey. So yeah, it was just a really warm circle where I could just learn, man, and these guys were willing to put things on me to allow me to learn. And that's something that I like to do with people that come into my fold now. I really like to bestow things on them, because nothing will hold you back more than somebody not believing that you can do something, not giving you that opportunity. When you give people opportunities, you give them the chance to see what they're made of, And I think that's what they did for me, is really just make me see what I was capable of.
Yeah, man. It sounds amazing. It sounds like you were part of the family almost.
Yeah, it felt that way.
That story about you and Jared sharing bunk beds was...
in the bus.
In the
right?
bus, yeah.
Everybody's in bunk beds in the bus.
But go back to that photo for a sec, Essay. You just told me...
Oh, yeah, that's Coachella.
That's Coachella?
Yeah. Yeah, so we were staying at a house in Palm Springs with Brandon Boyd from Incubus.
Yeah.
And we were staying there, and we went to Coachella. We got VIP wristbands, which was amazing, because it was Prince. It was Roger Waters.
That was the year Prince played.
Yeah, 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Prince, Roger Waters, Portishead, handful of others, but I mean Prince and Roger Waters were
no
really
doubt
the main thing, that's just, so we used to go on daily hikes. Actually the beginnings of Kings and Queens, where you hear the crickets and all that kind of stuff, that was all inspired, and some of it pre-recorded on our hikes in Runyon Canyon.
Wow.
That was during tour. We did a week and a half of all the late night shows.
That must have been an experience, the late night thing?
Yeah, I was blown away by how cold those sets are.
Oh, really, eh?
You open it, it's you were in Florida, in New York in the middle of the summer, it's boiling hot out. Or in California, we did the Carson Daly Show and David Letterman, and they open the door, and it's you can see your breath, and they're all wearing winter jackets.
What?
Yeah.
What's the reason for that? Do you know? Did you find out?
Yeah, it keeps the audience awake, so, apparently. And because of all of the lights, so that guests don't sweat, and it keeps the skin tight, so they look better on camera.
Wow, so there's a reason for it.
Yeah, I'm talking cold.
Wow.
It was unreal. I couldn't believe it. Like we were all just like, because like we didn't come with winter jackets.
No, you're coming from California.
Yeah. No, that was really interesting. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. We did Jay Leno. We did.
Did you guys get to meet Max Weinberg at the time?
I did not. No.
No. Yeah, that's one guy I always wanted to say hi to at some point. What festival was that?
That would have been. I think that looks like Warped Tour.
Oh, that was a good time.
Yeah, that was probably some of my favorite times. Was the Warped Tour, Taste of Chaos, and the all the radio festivals that K Rock and them used to have back down in the States, right?
I say go to the last photo, second last photo, that one.
Yeah,
that one.
This one?
What was that?
So this was we were touring with Audioslave at the time, and we had a London date at Budweiser Gardens.
Okay.
And it was Thanksgiving. And so my mom was like, "Are you going to be able to come for dinner?" I said, "Yeah, I think so." That was the nice thing about being an opener, is that you got to finish up early and there was less stress on you. Like you do your sound check and then you F off for a while and you come back when it's time to play. So I said to the guys, I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to my mom's house for Thanksgiving dinner. Are you guys interested in coming?" And Jared, unfortunately, is not there because he ended up getting really sick.
Oh, really?
It's a miracle he pulled off the show.
Mm.
Yeah. There was a few times where you want to talk about when you see artists that are like, "Oh, I don't want to play, I'm tired," or all these there's a lot of it, where it's like they're the only one that matters. Man, that guy trooped through some hard times and still pulled off a show because it was important to him. Anyway, so we got Shannon, Tomo, and Matt Wachter there. Matt actually ended up going and playing for Angels and Airwaves after the 30 Seconds to Mars thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so this is just us in front of my front yard with my mom, and we hosted them for Thanksgiving dinner.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and then we went back, and I had a handful of friends and stuff at the Audioslave concert, and
that's cool, man.
That was cool, yeah.
And then the next photo here, you said was one of your favorite photos.
Yeah, right? just because this is the only photo that I have of one of the most interesting nights I had on tour. I guess most memorable just because of what it was. We were playing in, I can't remember exactly where, but anyway, Philadelphia was only an hour drive away. So Bam Margera was at the show, and we were opening. We were kind of co-headlining, I guess, but we were the Used plays after us. So we were opening for the Used. That's H2O. They were a pretty popular. The guy with the blonde hair at the bottom is from a band called H2O. Yeah, they were pretty popular in New York and in the States. I don't think they ever really did much up here, but really cool band. They were the opener. So that was the lineup. It was 30 Seconds to Mars, the Used, and H2O. So yeah, Bam Margera, he was like, "Yo, I'm gonna have a party at my house if you guys want to come." And I caught wind of it, and I was just like, "Whoa, yeah, let's go." Alexis on Fire was on the tour as well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, some Canadian boys. And so basically, the Used had two buses. So one was deemed the party bus, the other was deemed the chill out bus. So the party bus was generally always occupied by most of the band, but Brandon, the drummer, and his now wife Spike, I don't know if they're still together or not. That's old history. Anyways, they were always on the comm bus, so they're like, "Yo, you guys, let's take the bus, and anybody that wants to go, we got a day off tomorrow, so let's just go have some fun." So we all pile on this bus, and I mean we're like sardines on this thing, right? And we're driving an hour to Philly to go to Bam Margera's house to have a big party. And it was the house where he has all the concrete ramps outside. It's just a sea of concrete for skateboarding.
That's awesome.
And the editing studio was there. And I remember he had this massage chair that I loved. And there's some other things, but so anyway, the funny thing is that I've seen George from Alexis on Fire since then, and I had a laugh, and I was like, so I didn't know who he was at the moment, but I'm on the bus and I'm like this, like kind of standing in the kitchen area right by where the bathroom is. And there's a guy literally right in front of me here. And it's George from Alexis on Fire. And we're just like kind of looking at each other like, hey, what's up, man? You know, like this. And then I look down and the guy's got on these shorts that are cut so high that the pockets are just hanging out like this and they're all frilly. And I'm just like, yeah. And then I find out it was George from Alexis on Fire. I'm like, okay, I guess it's a little bit easier for me to deal with, you know, like it was just funny. I'm like, what are you wearing? You know, like they're like just like there was just nothing there. It was just like this, you know, the bulge and then the pockets hanging and all this frilly stuff.
It was the look, man.
I'll never forget that. I'm just standing there like this guy, like, and he just, you know, he just got off the stage too, so everybody's just stinking up this bus, right? It's just funny. So anyway, that's that, and
Good times.
yeah.
Yeah, man. And then what happened after? So you went. So after that, you went home.
Yeah, went home. You know, basically, I got into. I was like, I have to take all of these skills that I learned and I have to apply them somewhere. So I thought, okay, I'm gonna get into. I actually went through like 2 months of strategizing where I would be up for like, you know, for like 36 hours straight. Just like thinking and writing and like creating business plans and trying to figure out like what am I gonna do, you know, and then I'd pass out for like 18 hours and then I'd wake up and I'd do it all again. I was the guy I'm going to a concert with tonight. He'll remember this. I was, you know, he came over with some beers and we go down to I was near a lake and I'm standing there and I literally just blacked out into the lake.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he was just like, are you okay? And I'm just like, oh, that was weird, you know, because I was just like really burning the oil thinking, you know, I got to figure something out because, you know, I knew everybody there was to know in the States. Everybody. I knew Irving Azoff. I knew the guys for the Lee Trink, who was the president of Virgin Records at the time. I had everybody in my corner. I knew nobody in Canada. So that was just like a really like I'm starting fresh.
And like looking back now, do you think that the Canadian scene it's obviously smaller than the US in terms of the amount of people exponentially, but so you were kind of at that point you were sort of on top of the world, so to speak, in the States, like with what
for better or for worse, right? It's
so
like you know, I had never done a van tour.
Yeah, like
I went to the top right away. So like,
so you were definitely racking your brain for a reason then.
Yeah,
like it was. Yeah,
like look at it this way: the first sushi I ever had was from Nobu in Las Vegas.
Wow.
Nothing has really ever come close ever since.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like just pretty decent sushi, but I've never had anything like that before.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
It's kind of the same thing where you set the bar, but I would say where the opportunity is there is that you know what the bar is.
Yeah, right.
You know, this is how that functions. And I thought, well, maybe I can bring some of that back here because it didn't really exist here. But it took many years before I even got an opportunity to do that, which is really where I'm at now, is how can I bring some of what they do in the States to the scene here, because we're catching up, but we were very far behind.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, even in how we value studios and engineers and people, like what we pay them is just substantial.
Well, let's get into that. So you did a bunch of studio stuff when you came back, right? So you started at Charterhouse, right?
Technically, I started in my mom's basement. I had a bunch of gear. I went to a small business financing place in my hometown there, St. Thomas. Took out like a $10,000 loan, renovated, bought a bunch of equipment. And I probably recorded, 30 or 40 albums there. It would be the ones that are mostly brown.
Go to early days.
The
early days.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So bottom. Yeah. Those ones there. Yeah.
Oh. No. You got to get rid of that photo that's over top. There you go.
So
there it is.
Yeah, this is the culmination of what I had. Spent the money mostly on acoustics and aesthetics, some equipment. I bought some speakers and that kind of some software, etc. It's funny. I listened back to some of the recordings I made on that 01V, and it went through ADAT into an RME card.
Yeah,
they still stand up. I'm still like these. I didn't even have half the knowledge of not even close to what I have now. And I'm like, these still sound good. Using 57s and MXL condensers, like nothing spectacular, but it still sounded really good.
That was in the basement?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That's an old sliding door that I disassembled and made it into a dual pane glass.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's your carpentry skills coming in handy.
Yeah, I did it all. Yeah. Even those things on the floor there that I eventually hung up and now exist in Charterhouse, the diffusers.
Yeah.
I just made those and I made everything. I don't know if the photo's in there, but there's a large rear wall diffuser. Maybe it's gone. But anyway, so spent some time doing that. Again, mother, very supportive. Like, I can't even tell you the patience that this woman had. I'd have bands running through the house. She'd be like, oh, I'll make you guys dinner. She'd make us all a huge thing of spaghetti. We'd all retire back downstairs. We'd just spend all night getting a guitar sound. Meanwhile, she's a couple floors up, and it wasn't like soundproofed. It was not bad, but that she heard it all.
Wow.
And never, ever once did she complain.
That's a trooper, man.
Ever.
Because I know what that's like here, and we've got concrete between us. Yeah. And like, even when I'm up here and the kitty girls or whoever is downstairs banging away, I mean, I can hear it through solid concrete.
It's hard to tune it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Especially as being audiophiles, where we train our ears to zone in on things, to hear the mouse farting in the windstorm way back there. I got that from the David Foster book. I'll have to give it credit.
That's awesome.
It's anyway, lovely. So I spent a handful of years doing that. Eventually, the house was to be sold. My mom was kind of figuring out her next steps, and it just kind of got to a point where it was like, okay, like, time to make another move. But I will say, like, this was one of like the lows, like in life and in career. I didn't know what I was gonna do, because I had the benefit of having a space where I didn't have to pay for rent. I help to try to contribute wherever I can, but it's an extremely tricky way to make money. I look back at it now as it was my college and university education.
Right.
Putting the time in. And that's how she looks at it too. She's like, you never made me pay for you to go to college or anything. She's like, I was happy to do it. That's just kind of how it was. Right. So yeah, to have that time to be able to really, not be constricted by an hourly or anything like that. It was just, I like what these guys are doing. I want to try to do something with them. So we would just do it. And we'd spend a lot of time learning.
Absolutely.
More learning, always learning. So when that was coming to a ruse, I was closing up that. We were, selling the house, and I didn't have a clue what I was going to do. My dad came over, and that's when he had the conversation we mentioned earlier that, hey, why don't you see what the guys at the PA shop have going on? I know that they had like a studio there or something. I'm like, okay. Because what was the other option? EMAC. There was nothing going on in London at that time.
No, there wasn't.
There really wasn't. It was EMAC, which is a great studio, but very, big studio vibes, big studio rates, right? There was nothing. Absolutely nothing. And that's, I think, why I was actually able to make some decent business there, because I was able to, advertise through all the online things that were coming out, like Kijiji and Facebook Marketplace, before they put all those restrictions on it. And so anyway, I came, met your brother, Kyle, had a chat, and saw the space, which was very good. It needed some stuff. At that point I was I could make anything work, but you guys were really supportive in a way of like, yeah, we'll bring some gear in, we'll get some microphones, we'll get some monitoring systems going. And I'd say it was like, in the beginning, it was like 80% of the way there. It just needed a few things, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And I remember, like, even you, like, it was like, hey, Royer sent us some mics, if you want to use them down in the studio, go ahead,
Sure. Yep.
But I'll never forget, and this is like one of those times where, like, I say accept everything, expect nothing. And I was broke. Okay. I spent about 3 months. I would come here every single day. And I remember I was working through creating the logos, creating the website, figuring out marketing strategies, figuring out ways to get people in the door, rates, getting the Pro Tools going properly, getting everything hooked up, all this stuff. The whole time I'm just spending my last dollars putting gas in the tank, just to get here. And I remember I had about 3 days until the house was gone. I didn't really, to be honest, like my dad and I, we were a little bit at odds at this moment because of the separation and everything. And my sister at the time was like, hey, I'm getting a condo with my boyfriend at the time. There's an extra room if you want to rent it. She's like, but I need this rent up front. And I didn't have any money. So I remember just sitting at the dinner table and thinking, man, like, how am I going to get this money together? I gotta move in 3 days. I have nothing. I have no money, nothing. It was really, really one of those moments that really tests your faith and your ingenuity. And I had a little voice in the back of my head that said, you should check the email from my old studio, which was called Interface Recording at the time. Anyway, it was like, you should check that email. And I thought, man, I haven't checked that email in a few months because I had been so focused on getting this place going because this was going to be, this is how I can make something happen, right? And I thought, yeah, I'm going to check it. I look at it, and it's like junk. And then I see like MH China or something like that. And I'm like, but it was, the headline was like studio recording or something like this. I'm like, what the heck is this guy? So I open it, and he's probably going to watch it. Mark Hoogstra, legend. He's this guy. He was like, hey, I'm coming into town. I've lived in China the last 20 years, like building a factory and building a business and all this stuff. And he's like, and I want to get the old boys together and record some songs. I'm like, cool, this is great. And I thought, what a great first project to bring into the studio. I think it was first, maybe there's a little bit of dabbling. I think I did maybe like a small thing before or something, but not much. It was the first real project. And he goes, yeah, he's like, I got about 60 songs or so. And I go, well, our day rate is X amount. Do you want to just kind of book some time and then use it up? He's like, yeah, I'll take 10 days up front. I was like, great.
Awesome.
Just like that, because at the time I was working out, we were basically splitting it. So instantly I had a few $1,000 and I was able to make this stuff happen. I was like, wow, I'm actually, so I said to my sister, hey, let's meet for sushi. And I sat down, I'm like, here you go. And she's like, yay. And it was a very big revelation in my life because it was like, if you don't panic, you keep your nerves in check and you keep your mind and your faith in check, and you just fight through it, man. It's not always peaches and rainbows, there's a lot of times there's difficult times. So especially in this business, I can count the times I've had a salary on 3 fingers. Mm-hmm. It's always been freelancing. So
yeah, absolutely.
You have to figure things out.
The universe was behind you on that one, though.
Yeah, and then we created something really great here. A couple 2-3 years, I think we had a really good run.
Absolutely. And we're still, Aaron kept it going, and we're still, SA is jumped on the team.
Yeah, he's jumped into it now,
And so
it's still going.
It's still going, man. So all the time you put in is still,
it wasn't in vain.
It was not in vain.
No.
We got some photos.
Yeah.
These are some of the early photos that I found from 2006, I think.
Okay, yeah.
From what was the original sort of setup.
A lot of it's, what is that? That's not the D command. What is that?
That was
that's a Yamaha?
That was right before. That was a Sony.
Oh,
that was right before we sold it. That was the first console we had in there.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was probably right before you came on board. My brother kind of set that all up at the time.
Yeah, I think what I really contributed was, I think more so just giving it direction, and giving it, having somebody there with a light on.
Yeah.
I think that's there's a composer, Reiner Stotzer.
Of course.
Who doesn't
Absolutely.
know Reiner? brilliant guy. He once said to me something that really, really rang true and has really carried forward with me. Same time, young up and coming guy trying to make some money here and there. My friend Don Baker, who, he was the one that got me going in the recording scene. He said, yo, Reiner needs some help. He's moving his studio and he needs a guy to help him clean up some cable and stuff. I'm like, cool. And the whole time I just got, not only did I get paid, I got oh, that's a cool photo. Not only did I get paid, which was great, I got just one of the best conversations I ever had in my life, because he's just a very affluent person. He's just very, very strong on, positive enforcement and bringing good things into your life and how to structure that energy and actually use it. So that was very cool. And he kind of said to me, because I had the studio starting up and we were just kind of trying to get the ball rolling and everything. And he said to me, he's like, so what's going on over there? I'm like, yeah, it's just going, but like, it hasn't been kicking off quite, it wasn't quite as busy as I wanted it to be. And he goes, well, how often are you there? I'm like, I was there a lot in the beginning, but now, I've kind of just been kind of, trying to get to know the London scene and, kind of being a bit comfortable, to be honest. I kind of got, there was a couple weeks where it was like, I kind of slowed down. I'm like, I don't know what's going on, and fell into a little bit of a rut. And he goes, you got one thing you got to understand. He's like, you need to turn up every day. So you need to turn up every day. You need to go in there. You need to fire things up. He's like, even if you do nothing, you have to be ready for when that energy comes to you. It's not even an email, not even a phone call. When that energy is directed to you, that you're the guy with his hand up and the little light flashing going, me, I can do that. He's like, you have to adopt that into your brain, turn up every day. And he's like, and it will come. And he was right. Yeah. At that point I was like, okay, like even if, I'm out of money or whatever, it's like, just go, just sit there, turn stuff on, figure things out, post an ad, do something. And sure enough, after a while, it just really started to snowball and roll and create more and more business. So.
Reiner's incredible. Shout out to Reiner Stoker.
Is incredible.
Touched a lot of people over time, including myself. Yeah. Ran into him. He was he married my French teacher from elementary school, and hadn't seen him since elementary school because back.
I know who you're talking about. Her, I'm unfortunately her name escapes me, but I know who you're talking
about. So we
Reiner
and Mary.
Mary, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so we. Anyway, we ran into each other at shout out to Cody Hackman. I ran into him at Cody's. He did a premiere here in town for his film, and then we did the after party downtown, and we both showed up at the after party and bumped into each other. And I hadn't seen him since elementary school. And
Cody?
No, Reiner.
Oh, Reiner.
Because Reiner worked on the music for the film.
Got it.
And so anyway, hadn't seen Reiner since elementary school. And we just got talking and like, hey, so what are you doing now? And he had sort of a bit of a lull in some of the stuff he was working on and time on his hands. And I said, well, I'm working on producing dance music and writing some dance music stuff. He goes, oh, I've always wanted to do that. And I'm like, well, maybe we should get together. And we did. And so me and him, we've got some good stories over it. But yeah, we worked all kinds of time, either in his studio, in my studio. We even drove to Toronto. We worked with my cousin, Matt. We even, at one point, we rented a hotel room near the airport in Toronto just to have a space to work there, because me and Matt used to have a studio space in Toronto and Woodbridge, but no more. And so all kinds of stories of us working together. But I, like you, had the extreme pleasure of having some of that wisdom that Reiner has.
He cracked open his skull and gave you a scoop.
Man, it is, and if anyone ever watching ever has a chance to meet Reiner and go to his place, he's got these bookcases that are to die for, and all categorized, and just such a well-read, well-grounded human being. And so, shout out to Reiner.
He referred a book called The Astonishing Power of Emotions to me. That was a very, very good book. It talks about how your emotions, reflect everything.
Absolutely.
How you respond to things, it's
This literally happened to me yesterday. I had a girl contact me and she said, "Hey, I'm doing an event. It's at this place downtown. They just lost their internet and we're streaming a game or a race. Sorry, we're streaming a race and we have no internet. And I need you to come and do the projection and screen for it. But is there any chance you can supply internet too?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got a hub. I got a hub. I'll just contact the provider and hook it back up." And she's like, "Oh, I wish more people were like you." Yeah. Right. Yeah. And that's kind of in combination of some of the stuff you were just saying, right? Yeah. Like what Reiner was saying in that, like, be on, be ready,
yep.
And have, and want it too.
Yeah.
Like in combination with that, you really have to want it. You have to want that energy in your life. And that goes back to what you were just saying about sort of, the emotional side and the mental side, right? You have to be prepared to take that energy and run with it too, right?
Yeah, we're all magnets and we're all in big bags of emotions.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Learning to control and work with all of them, right?
So I pulled up, these are some photos from when, there's the D Command.
That's the D Command. Was that a Shure microphone demonstration?
It was, I think. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And there's Chris Babin in the back of that photo. That's cool. And Chris was...
Yeah, we were doing things like that.
Chris was at OEARD at the time. He's no longer...
That's the beautiful thing about London, man. There's just so many student engineers here, people that are kind of getting their first step in the door.
Absolutely. So this was... We were videoing it, and then we had it on, I think, a screen in the other room.
Yeah.
And if you keep going, there's Adam Plant. Adam's with Harman Pro Canada now.
Yeah, he was bringing in the Shure.
But he was the Shure rep at the time, and he's a Londoner here.
Yeah.
Plays in a couple different bands. Now, here's the interesting thing. So this is, pretty sure this is Ned. And Ned works here now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so this photo is, I think, 2011. And so, 13 years later, now Ned actually works here. He's in charge of the frontline customer service at the counter downstairs.
Nice.
2 degrees of separation. Welcome to London. It's so true.
Yeah. I think that was the first pair of Opals purchased in Canada.
Yeah.
Because I think you, me, and Kyle were at a trade show. Yeah. And we heard them and they were talking about them.
At the MEAC show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we said, we want those ones right there. We bought the floor models and we brought them back. And that's actually the speaker that I use at home today.
Nice.
I have that exact same setup. Opals and NS10
I think Aaron does too at his home studio.
Yeah?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, they're fantastic.
Yeah.
I'd love to have one of those D commands, but it just doesn't.
That's
it doesn't integrate
gone.
With that console is the best Pro Tools integration I've ever used.
That's long gone.
Yeah, it's too bad. Like, it's because it's not supported.
Yeah, right. And then so after this, the Charterhouse stint, you went out west for a sec, right?
So I was itching to get to Toronto, basically. Okay. I thought, if my next step has got to be to try to make something in the bigger city. So I went to Toronto. I was dating somebody at the time. I'm going through a bit of a old reflection here. I was dating somebody at the time. We both wanted to get to Toronto. So we said, okay, well, let's pack up and go to Toronto. It was obviously more conversation than that, but
sure.
Ended up in Toronto. After about 6 months, it didn't work. It didn't last. And a few months after that, because when I first got to Toronto, I didn't know anybody there. I didn't have any feet in the door anywhere. My brother-in-law was a director at a bunch of nightclubs, so I ended up getting in at front door service at a nightclub. And what else was I doing? Geez, I was doing a little bit of mixing. I had a band out of New York that was sending me some stuff, so I was doing a little bit of that. I was working at a studio called Iguana Studios. They got a beautiful SSL 4000 there. That was my first use of an SSL. And then after the breakup, after about 2 months of spending all my money, again, back to the point where I'm like, shit, I'm out of money and I got to figure out what the next thing is to do. So my mom was actually working in the Northwest Territories, and she said, hey, if you want to come up here, there's work to do. She's like, there's people that need things done. You can fix stuff, you can paint stuff, you can help me at the bar, whatever. I was like, okay, it's something. So went out there, had an amazing 2 months.
Wow.
Living literally what felt like in the wild, even though you're in a community. But it was, 24-hour daylight in the summer. Really eye-opening, very interesting place. Saved up, $6,000-7,000 there over the course of a couple months, and then went down to Vancouver and spent a year gallivanting and vagabonding around Vancouver. Rented a couple apartments, started to figure it out. Started off, again, like I said in the beginning, important to have something else, in my opinion. Like some people, like they're fortunate enough in their world where they have enough money in the bank from old family money or something that they can just do this. Good for them. I hope that they make something of it and all that. I didn't. So for me, it was like if I wasn't making money with music, I needed to have something that I was doing. Some people bartend, whatever. For me, it was using a drill and a hammer and getting up there. And I wanted to make $40-50 an hour. You know what I mean? So answered an ad for a roofing carpenter. Did that for a couple weeks. And then I had that weird voice in my head again that said, this isn't what you're meant to be doing here. You need to let this go. And you need to wait for the next thing. And have patience. So I did. And it was funny, like all the guys that were working, they're like, what do you mean? Like you're just quitting? Like I was like, I don't know, it's not for me. They're like, what do you mean it's not for you? Because I don't remember any of their names, but it made me think like, maybe they didn't have another option. They're like,
Right.
To them, it was just like, what do you mean? Like, it was unheard of to just like come in for a couple weeks and then just bugger off. It was like, this is a good gig. So anyway.
Well, especially out there, because the
Yeah.
cost of living out there is insane.
Horrendous. I was living, when I first landed there, it was a hostel in the basement of an Asian couple's house. And there was like people kind of coming and going and a little shared, like sad excuse for a kitchenette. And it was like, it was unbelievable. Anyway, but when you went out for a walk, it was the most beautiful place you'd ever seen. Like
Awesome.
You're like, this is Canada. It's unbelievable. The cherry blossoms and the massive trees and the smell of the air was amazing. Anyway, so I thought, well, what am I going to do? So oddly, you know what? I went out on a limb. I don't know if anybody does anything like this anymore. If you don't, I would maybe encourage it. I wrote a letter to the internet.
Wow.
This is me. This is my background. This is what I'm here to hopefully do. Contact me. And I posted it on Kijiji and I posted it on Craigslist. And about a week later, I got an email back from a guy and he said, hey, can you meet me? I manage a studio. I'm actually going to be leaving and you seem like you'd be a really good fit for this. So I ended up meeting with him and then I met with the big boss and I ended up managing Crew Studios in Vancouver. It was something. The studio was incredible, beautiful, really nice place to work. It was.
Do you have photos of that?
Yeah, there should be a couple in there. Yeah, no, that's Romania. That's Crew Studios. Yeah.
There we go.
Only it's the only control room I ever seen with a skylight.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess they spent a lot of time and money making that acoustically sound
No doubt.
because it's right above your listening position. Angled glass, the works. Like one window was like 6 pieces of glass in different angles.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they had an API 1608 there. They had the Avid control, I guess it was, as the Pro Tools front end. So this used to be Baker Street Sound Studios.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Paul Baker, he ran it for years and years. Obviously, Chilliwack, a lot of big Elvis Costello, a lot of people recorded at Baker Street. It was pretty well one of the most, it was up there with Mushroom and Warehouse. It was like, one of those little boutique little studios.
Yeah.
So I guess what happened is that Paul Baker was at a point where he has a beautiful room. Paul Baker was at a point where he needed some money to do some renos and to fix things up. And so he went to a guy named Sergio who owns it now. He also owns a bunch of hotels and stuff. Really nice guy, good guy, big business guy. Anyway, so he went to him, borrowed some money, and Sergio, I guess, basically, wrote it in that he's co-owner of this place now. And when Paul died, because he developed cancer and he passed away, Sergio inherited the title to the studio. So God bless him, rather than rip the thing apart, he sunk a bunch of money into it, completely gutted the whole place, rebuilt the beautiful thing that you see here.
Yeah, looks amazing.
Yeah, it's stunning. It's like mahogany ceilings, bamboo floors, and birch walls. And then that's all river rock that was pulled out of the river nearby.
Wow.
So yeah, it was stunning. The mic locker was stunning. The design was beautiful. The sound was incredible. Yeah. So anyway,
cool.
There was also another room on the other side of the control room. It's not in there. On the other side of the control room where they had a grand piano, a couple vocal booths. It was great. Yeah.
Wow.
So I did that for a while. After a year, basically when I was in the job interview, Sergio was like, I'm kind of losing faith on this thing, because he's like, it costs a lot of money. He of course saw it as like, oh yeah, there's lots of business in the studio world, Lionsgate's films, all that kind of stuff. I actually recorded Frank Giustra, the guy who started Lionsgate's films, and he has a bunch of mining. Cool guy. Wow. I recorded him there because he and Sergio were friends.
Oh, that's cool.
I recorded him and his kids doing a Chipmunks Christmas special that they were going to send to,
that's awesome.
They were going to send to all of their friends and colleagues and peers.
Oh, that's cool.
So anyway, after basically he said to me in the beginning, he's like, we'll give it a year and we'll see what happens. He's like, if it doesn't take off, I'm probably just going to look into other options like private leasing, that sort of thing. I go, okay, give me a year. So I spent a year just trying my darndest. I was going out and meeting everybody that I could. I even went to Sean Varro from Widemouth Mason. He was playing at a blues club there every Friday night.
Oh, really?
Doing like a blues thing. It was really cool. And I said to him, like, man, I'm just trying to get this studio off the ground. If you'd be willing to come and just come and record, just have the space, just have it and just let me, be like, if you like it, Sean Varro approves of this place, shit like that, just to try to get something happening. Unfortunately, nothing really ever took off. Mushroom Studios just closed. Everybody out in the West Coast studio-wise was starting to struggle. I think Armory was the studio. Armory was another one that was closing. So it was just a weird time for that. And after a year, I just kind of went in. And at this point, I was like, I needed to make a decision. Am I going to stay in Vancouver, or am I going to go back to Toronto, Ontario, and tough it out in Toronto? And because that's where my family was. And it really came down to family and friends, to be honest. Yeah. I could have went longer in Vancouver, but that opportunity was leaving, and I thought, you know what? Heck with it. I'm just going to go back to Toronto and try to finally soil the roots.
Sure.
Because it was a lot of moving around, which I don't regret. It's all experiences, but it's hard to establish a network and establish a reputation when you're gallivanting around trying out different flavors,
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you went back to Toronto and
came back to Toronto.
What happened there?
4 years of, no, not 4 years, 2 years of nothing, 2 years of renovating, doing things just to kind of make money and pay rent. Meanwhile, working on little things here and there. Always, here's the thing, always on Pro Tools, always doing something, always trying, always absorbing something and being like, can I make this work? You learn quickly that your environment is really important. Your monitoring conditions, your ability to make as much noise as you need to without pissing people off is a huge thing. Mm-hmm. So, did that. Back to Iguana Studios, Vic Branco over there, he started hiring me out for a lot of different session work there. And then I got into I did my first dabble into live production. And that was really kind of the turning point for me to realize I had been pigeonholing myself a lot throughout my career, thinking like, oh yeah, because I do love the studio. But as I got more and more into the live stuff, I thought, man, there's a whole world of new information and new things to learn here. Why haven't I been looking at this? So yeah, I started getting into, basically I did a couple of like bands for like big weddings. And, you know, a lot of people would think, oh, that seems kind of, you know, weird or petty or whatever. It's like, honestly, it's some of the best experience I have ever gotten, because not only are you dealing with brides and bridezillas and grooms and everybody that you think concerts want things down to a fine detail. No. Weddings where people are spending $500,000, that's where the details are really refined.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And we were, you know, so yeah, I started doing that. Did a couple, and then a keyboard player said to me, a guy named Jerry Karingi, I'll never forget him. He said, hey, you're pretty good at this. You know, you should reach out to this guy. He's been starting a business doing this. I go, oh, okay. I didn't really like the guy I was working for at the time, so it was actually a really nice thing. And so I contacted him. His name's Vadim, and he was starting a company servicing bands specifically for high-end events, particularly in the Jewish, Italian, Russian worlds, where they go really big on their weddings and their bar mitzvahs and all that kind of stuff. Whereas bands, 10-piece bands for a bar mitzvah, like, you know, it's great.
Crazy.
And they're all some of the best players you could imagine, you know, because it's all the cream of the crop from other places that made its way to Toronto. That is like, I need to make money. So they get into playing these things for, I don't know how much they're making a night, probably 500 bills a night. And they're all just incredible. So that was really fun about it, is like, you know, I did about 4 years of this, of 3-4 a week, where we're playing like, you know, sometimes it was an outdoor festival, or sometimes it was a bar mitzvah, or sometimes it was a giant wedding or a corporate event or something. But it was very outside of the vein of rock and roll. It was very much, you know, I changed into a suit and I was, you know, fed steak and lobster. So it was pretty nice. But the work was really intense. Like at the time, Vadim's company consisted of 2 or 3 PA systems. You know, the ETX 15s with the 15 SP subs, you know, some Soundcraft mixers, that sort of thing, and wireless stuff, and throw it into a van and drive it to the destination, load it in, set it up, run the night, tear it down, put it in the van, bring it back to the shop, unload it, pack it. So it was extremely grueling days. But we did this for 4 years, and now his company is, you know, exponentially larger. They got line arrays, and they're doing all kinds of similar to what your dad and your brother do. Not quite to that scale, but similar. And on the 3rd year of that is I was actually teaching for Trebas.
Oh, okay.
So I was doubling that. I was doing a recording program for Trebas, and I was doing the gigs on the weekends. So after about, I guess, 2 semesters of Trebas, a little voice came back and said, hey, this is great and all, but you still have a lot to learn. And I wasn't ready to commit myself to teaching yet, if ever, but yet. I was definitely like, I have way more that I want to grab. I was regurgitating information routinely over and over. Yeah, this is what a patch bay is. This is how a preamp works. This is what we're doing here, all this stuff. And I had to, you know, I created my own programs and marking grades and stuff. And I was just like, you know, what am I doing? Like, I'm 32. You know, I don't really want to do this yet. I still feel like I have so much more to grab onto. So yeah, little voice in my head said, you know what, this isn't for you. You need to free up this time and give your notice. And I didn't have a plan. As you've probably noticed as a trend, I generally didn't have much of a plan. It was kind of more of a throw it to the wind and have faith you're going to get taken in the right direction, you know? So I put in my notice, put in my 2 weeks, honored all the, you know, the classes and everything, and, you know, graciously exited. And literally on my last day, I get a call from a British man Hello, is this Andre? Yeah, it's Eddie Kramer here. I tell you, man, because I saw the phone call. I'm like, I don't know, hang on, I gotta take this because they were doing a class, and I walked out in the hallway, and I'm just like, Eddie Kramer, like the Eddie Kramer? What do you mean? And so what happened is my brother-in-law 6-7 years prior said to who is now a really dear friend of mine, a guy named Clifton Broadbridge, excellent guitar player, like pulls off Stevie Ray and Jimi Hendrix as good as they could. Well, nobody wants.
Sure.
Excellent.
Yes.
Excellent. Anyway, he does the classic albums live. He does like all the stuff. Really? Yeah. But Stevie Ray Vaughan, all that, and he even has like a Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat. He's got the tone, everything. Anyway, excellent guitar player. Always played in the circuit. He had connected with Michael Weckerly, who now owns the El Mocambo, and together they kind of brainstormed the entire inception of the El Mocambo. Part of which being bringing on Eddie Kramer as the studio guy to run the studio, and alongside as a whole part, because Clifton had hired Eddie to do a record in the past, and so that's where that connection came from.
I see.
And Michael was like, hey, let's bring on Eddie because he recorded stuff here back in the day. And let's bring him on to be the studio engineer while we build this whole thing. And he can also advise and counsel and this whole thing. So and as a part of it, Eddie's going to teach you, Clifton, how to engineer. So Clifton's like, great, I'm going to learn how to mix and yada, yada. So like 5-6 years pass and they've been like doing this whole thing. And but Rob had said to Clifton, sorry to get back to this, Rob had said to Clifton many years ago, hey, if you ever have the chance to get Andre into the fold, this is my brother-in-law, he's great, blah, blah, blah. Do it, try him out for me as a favor, as a friend. And it just goes to show, like, man, like family is everything, you know? Like somebody that can like just talk to somebody and refer you and give you, complete confidence in that you're going to do something good for them. Anyway, so he it's everything. So he was like, okay, yeah, I'll anytime the opportunity arises, I will do that. 6-7 years later, the opportunity arose. They put together a studio and they needed an assistant. Basically, Clifton was starting to go off and start to do his own career. Eddie needed a studio assistant. So that's where the call to me came from.
Okay.
But unbeknownst to me, I didn't know why this was happening. I'm just like, what the heck? Eddie Kramer's calling me. And he just interviewed me right on the spot. He's like, oh, I hear you're a pretty good engineer. I'm like, yeah, I'm not bad. Yeah. He's like, so have you done any projects? I'm like, yeah, I've probably done like 200 different projects at least or so. He's like, Pro Tools? I'm like, yeah, very well. He's like, okay, come with me. We'll have a sit down. Went and did what all English men did. We had tea.
Yeah.
And
cheers.
Yeah, cheers. We had tea, and I basically got the job right on the spot. Went into the offices of the El Mocambo, met with Michael, sorted out a salary, and then that was the beginnings of it. So I started. We had a studio, which I sent you some photos of. My first task was we were moving the studio to a new location, so to soundproof it. Yeah.
There you go.
So, yeah, I mean that just stinks of Eddie Kramer. You got a Neve into an ATR 102. You got all the outboard gear in the world, Pultex, everything. So, yeah, it was just one of those moments where you're just like, you don't know what's gonna happen, and you just something figures out. Maybe I'm blessed. The
universe has got you, man.
I think so. I try not to make it though. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying.
I like to keep things all just like.
You like to keep it interesting.
Expect nothing except everything.
Yeah.
So yeah. Basically, my responsibility was that like it was just it was really interesting. I never really got to know my grandfather, and as an adult meeting Eddie, it was like. he and I were like two peas in a pod, man. You know, we were both heavy nerds on the gear. We both had a strong understanding of what was going on. We all, you know, we liked similar things. You know, we were both like big into foods, and just I'd pick him up every morning from his house, and we'd drive to the studio, and we would just have a laugh. You know, it was just a really good time.
That's cool.
Learned a lot from him, especially about like how he does things with signal chains. You know, how he uses things just differently. You know, like there won't be a mix that ever passes where, for automation, where he won't have his fingers at least on the fader. Whether he's moving it or not, there's always a touch, which I thought was really interesting.
The Eddie Kramer touch.
It's even if it's that, it's just those extreme subtle movements of your hand just being your hand contributed to what he called the weaving of the audio together. And I thought, to me, that was like, wow, that's really cool, because it's just like nothing was ever static. Even if it barely moved at all, it was micro movements. It was still happening. There was still that slight bit of a touch on the automation. So there was always, he was a big purveyor of automation, tons of automation. So yeah, just learned lots of things. And then it was funny because sometimes I would curveball him too, because he'd be like, okay, I want you to go into the audio and turn down in between all of the rack toms. And I was like, why the hell would I do that? I'm like, use an expander. So he'd be like, yeah, it sounds good. I'm like, yeah, exactly. You know, like thinking that I had turned down all the audio, so I would just throw an SSL expander on it and like set it to -20, but because he just wanted it down, he didn't want it gated. Just throw an expander on it. Like, why would I do that? What a waste of time. Anyway, so like fun things like that. Like I would kind of change things a bit, but I did help him on. I don't know if it's the latest, but maybe the latest Jimi Hendrix release.
Oh, really?
I touched it a little bit, not a ton, but like actually set up the session and cleaned up some stuff and organized it, because he was actually going to a studio in LA. It's escaping me at the moment, but he was bringing it there where he did all the Jimi Hendrix stuff. So he was bringing it there to do it, but just kind of getting everything set and, you know, all that kind of stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah, it was neat. And then some other stuff. So anyway, how this all began was I was brought on to be Eddie's assistant. Over time, you know, as the club was coming together, we obviously hit all kinds of roadblocks with building as it happens. There was COVID, but that wasn't a part of it. But Eddie decided it was his time to move on, and he was done, but I was really just getting started. I didn't really know what was going to happen with me. I kind of felt like, oh, dang, is this going to go away now? You know, because I was the assistant, but that's where Clifton really kind of stepped in, and he was like, yo, this guy's excellent. We have to keep him on. We need to get him involved with the El Mocambo. He should be running that place, is how Clifton used to put it. So that's kind of where that all kind of started. There was about a year where they were kind of starting to do all the finishes on it, like start even drywalling certain areas. Like there was a lot of work happening at the Elmo, and I was still on salary with the Elmo for the studio, and there just wasn't a lot happening. There just wasn't a lot going on in the studio every now and then, but Clifton was very savvy enough that he was able to handle things on his own. He didn't need help, other than every now and then there'd be something to troubleshoot.
Sure.
And troubleshooting will always keep money in the bank.
Yeah.
So as you know, I kind of was sitting at home and, you know, started thinking, you know, I don't want to lose this. I need to do something to make myself feel like I'm not somebody to just collect money for nothing. I can't do that. I have to do something. I have to feel like I'm contributing in some way. So I thought, well, I'm going to grab my tool belt again, and I'm going to head out to the Elmo, 7 a.m. every morning, and I'm going to help these guys finish this place. So that's what I did. I was like, I did that. I only did like 3 days a week, maybe 2-3 days a week. because I also had responsibilities with the studio. We were doing stuff, but it just wasn't crazy busy. And then I also had my gigs on the weekends.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so I was kind of almost triple dip. Well, not double dipping, but I was doing three things. After a while, basically I spent about 6-7 months doing that. Then an old shoulder injury came back, and it got increasingly more difficult to do it. And I thought, I am sort of volunteering my time into doing this, sort of. So I'm just gonna kind of ease back for a bit and get back to focusing on the studio. Maybe see if I can do something there. And then COVID.
Wow.
Yeah. And COVID hit, and it was like, what's going to happen now? I knew that just in the last, I remember one time there was a meeting where, the designer of the place sat Michael down and was like, look, if you want to keep this on course, you need to come up with $1 million a month for 6 months in a row.
Wow.
To get this done on your window of time. So I can't even imagine the stresses that man was dealing with to make that happen. And when COVID hit, I kind of, I was very sensitive to that. And I thought, I called up Michael and I said, look, I'm gonna bow out for now. You don't owe me anything. I grabbed my last paycheck from them and I said, I'm gonna do the CERB thing and try to revitalize and figure something else out. Let's see how long this lasts. None of us knew it was going to last 2 years, of course.
Sure.
So yeah, I just kind of took it as an opportunity to go like, maybe I can relieve a little bit of pressure off of you, just a little, by doing this and saying, I'll collect CERB for a couple months. Let's see what happens. Obviously like a year went by, and it was very limited crew on site. To be completely frank, the guy that was designing it, I don't think he didn't really like me too much, and I think it was more so how I was introduced. I think maybe he felt threatened by my position, like because they were like, oh, he should run the place, but in his mind he wanted to run the place. And I have no ill feelings or anything. It's just, it is what it is. I understand people protecting themselves and everything, but I think that's a part of the reason why I was just like, I'm just going to step away from this for now, because I don't really want to be too tied up in this. Like, I'm a self-reliant person. I'll figure something out.
Sure. Yeah.
And basically, yeah, they kind of, finished things up to a point, and I went off into I went back to framing. I was helping a good friend of mine who runs a construction company. We finished houses, and I actually got to a point after a year where I was very cozy, and I had very slight thoughts of, I don't know if I want to go back, because I liked the 8 to 4, 4 weeks off a year, weekends off. 4 o'clock and on, I go home, I relax. I feel like I accomplished a lot because my body is tired. Like I was starting to see the benefits of it. I was like, there's something real here, but there's, obviously you start doing insulation and stuff. You forget that pretty quickly. You're like, yeah, I don't want to rip apart a 100-year-old house anymore. This is not fun. Scratching your face all the hell. Oh man. Anyway, so I was doing that for a good year. And I also was helping on a farm, doing a bunch of gardening and farming, which was great. Out in the sun all day, loved it. And then randomly out of the blue, I was painting my fiance's parents' house because it just needed a fresh coat of paint. I wanted to do something for them. And I was painting the place, and I got a call from Michael, and he said, we're going through some changes. I really need you. I need somebody to come back here and help make this place something. I need somebody to run the place, basically, or at least run the production side. At the time it was run the place, but it was like, there's a lot of different things going on. So I said, well, I'll come and let's talk about it. And that was kind of it. I went there and we chatted for a while, and he kind of said, sort of, name your price to a certain extent, and I thought, well, what am I doing now? I like what I'm doing, but like, if I don't take this opportunity, I'm like, I could regret it forever, because this was the opportunity that I was really gearing myself up for. I wanted to run that place. I wanted to do this. I wanted to be a part of this history, because the place is so historic.
Yeah.
You know, there's just so much that happened there, and it is now so much. It's just such a beautiful place to be able to call my work environment, you know. Right. Again, very blessed. So, you know, but I did have that real strong idea of, you know, because at this point I'd been in a relationship for like 6 years. I thought, you know, because that's the thing, you're tied to the downtown core when you're in this business. You know,
absolutely.
You're not living 2 hours outside of Toronto and driving in on a regular. It's not happening. So you have to like really want it.
Yeah, you got to commit for sure.
You got to commit. So anyway, I decided eventually, I'm like, you know what, I'm going to do it because I need to see where this goes. And if I ever decide, you know, this isn't what I want, then this other opportunity is always there for me. I can always go back to it. But really it came down to like, if I don't do this, I feel like I was going to regret it. And I'm very, very happy that I did it, because, you know, we've worked through so many things. We've had so many interesting and cool artists come through. There's still so much more to go.
We got some photos, right? I see.
Yeah.
That you give me there. The
you know,
Mocambo photos.
Yeah, I mean, where else do you get to work on a 400 cap room with a Cara line array?
So what's this?
That's the studio. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's an SSL 550L that's been configured to be a broadcasting console. Just the way that we've routed all the outputs and everything. We have a 5.1 system in there with ATC SCM25s. Those are the SCM 100 soffit mounts up there. Next to it, which is not in the photo, there's a full video broadcasting system.
Yeah.
It's all Blackmagic systems, ATEMs, ISO HyperDecks, all that kind of stuff.
That came in handy during COVID, I'm sure.
That is what basically kept us, like, we were able to apply for permits to do things because we had the capability to stream. We actually streamed Gordon Lightfoot out of there.
Oh, wow.
And that's, I believe, the last recording.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really?
At least as far as like a live recording.
That's intense. Sure. The episode I just did with DJ Williams.
Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it is.
The episode I just did with DJ Williams, we just had a talk about Gordon because he was he was involved with him too.
Yeah.
This is that photo you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the photo. Yeah. I mean, David Foster is just, I've read all the books. Anybody put out a book in this industry, like, other than artists, anybody that's like behind the scenes, I've read the books. You know, Glenn Johns, sound man, Al Schmidt, what is Behind the Sound or something. David Foster's Hitman, like just all of those. I soak them up like a sponge because I love to read. I should mention that guy in a minute there too. But yeah, like that was the one day where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna break my code. I'm gonna bring my book. And I'm gonna ask the guy to sign it. I was like, I was embarrassed because I'm just like, I don't do this, but like, he was a big inspiration. I loved his book. I may not ever get this chance again because I learned in the past, it's like you got to take those opportunities when they come, because I probably won't ever get any photos with those other people again. Right.
Sure.
So I was like, you know what? I'm older now. I don't care so much. I've established myself. I'm going to ask for the photo and the autograph. And he was very, very humble, very, very nice man. And he was great, glad to do it. So that was really nice.
That's awesome.
He was there with his wife, Catherine McPhee, and they did a master class.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was part of the Canadian Independent Music Society, I think, or something like that. Anyway.
Cool.
Yeah, that's a view from front of house. So that's putting in the sign. That's Michael sitting up on the sign.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's just a photo that a photographer snapped of me.
It's a good photo.
Yeah. I'm
There's
fucking Elmo.
That's
Yeah.
Where is that sign?
It's in the stairwell on the way down. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, so it's just been just a really rewarding experience because from a production and technical side of it, I run the place now, which is a great honor,
Absolutely.
But I also I feel like I deserved it. Yeah, I've cut my teeth. I know the inner workings. There's a lot of things that I learned there too. Like I didn't really know much about lighting or video systems until I worked there. Now I'm pretty keen on Crestron and Q-Sys and Grand MA and video walls and different things, just troubleshooting,
even wireless frequencies and all that kind
RF,
of stuff. RF.
Yeah, I get more involved with that. Some of that came with the previous live experience, but it's just been great. So I'm the only technical staff on like a salary there. We hire in all freelancers whenever there's an event, and I got a great pool of people.
Nice.
Yeah, we have a very good reputation that we 100% across the board. And, like there's maybe in my whole time there, I think there's been one little F up I don't want to talk about. It wasn't even my fault, but I took blame for it.
So what's
the
live music scene in Toronto? How's it doing?
It's good. Yeah. It's taken a bit of time to recover, obviously, from the whole COVID thing. There was a huge push right after COVID. I feel like it slowed down a little bit, but I mean, there's always lots of new talents and stuff. There's a lot of stuff brewing there.
Is there a lot of venues still going on in Toronto for live music?
Yeah, most of them are still there. I think the Silver Dollar closed, Orbit Room closed, but they weren't so much that type of venue. I mean, History just opened.
History's doing a lot.
Yeah, History's doing a lot. I mean, they have the perfect capacity number. You're getting all those bus tour, single bus, dual bus touring bands, And
it's a great room. Like I went and saw Muse there with my brother. And
that's an underplay, but yeah.
Well, and it was totally, but it was a really, it's well set up. It's well set up to watch shows. I was on the balcony. I had tickets on the upstairs, and it was great.
Yeah,
I had a good time.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm yet to go.
Really, eh?
I haven't been.
We're gonna have to go then.
Yeah, I'd like to. I'm at the club.
I know
all the time.
I know. Well, look at how long it took me to get you
here.
The
last thing I want to do is to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I get
Even like today, like my buddy's like, "Oh, I got tickets to Budweiser Gardens." I'm like, "All right, it's a Wednesday. I can make it happen."
Totally.
Yeah.
Is there bands coming up? Like, is there places for them to play in Toronto?
Yeah. Oh yeah. There's still like Rivoli, Horseshoe, sort of like the like the lower cost of entry sort of places. Lots of those. Yeah. Yeah. Cameron House. Where else?
So the scene's still pretty vibrant in Toronto, which is cool.
Yeah, it's great.
How do people play at the Elmo? How does that work?
So I mean, really just contact us, like anywhere. We're a little more of a premium space. We're not the $500 to book the whole space kind of place. We have books to adhere to. We have staff to pay. We staffed at a time where like I don't have the guy that has been doing audio for 30 years and is okay with $150 a night. Like,
right.
Those aren't the kind of people that we have there. Everything that comes in there, other than myself, is a staffed person, and it's a good rate. It's comparable to your Axis or your History, those types of places. It is a comparable rate, but we're dealing with similar systems. I mean, we're dealing with L-Acoustics Caras. I always say to people like, you could deafen everybody in the room with this PA if you don't know what you're doing. You could.
You could, yeah.
You know what I mean? And then it's all like Grand MA3s. So unless you're a programmer, you're not touching lights.
Yeah, totally.
You need real people. So, we do have the advantage of having two venues. We have the downstairs, which is like the slightly smaller cap, long throw, traditional style music venue. It's much more cost effective to book that. We self-promote some shows. Mostly we're dealing with outside promoters. It's usually just a flat rate, that we don't charge bands for merch. You know, we're not doing things like that. Yeah, just contact. You can go on the website. You know, there's a bookings email there. Just email that. We do a mix between concerts and private events.
Right.
We've really found this wonderful niche where, you know, the private events can kind of subsidize some of the cost of potential losses with, you know, concerted events where, you know, you book 3 bands, who knows how many people you're going to get to show up, right?
Sure.
As it goes. So doing the private thing has been really, really beneficial. We've got a great team that brings these people in. Mike Chaloux, shout out. He's just a gem. He always says he's the glitz and glam and I'm the nuts and bolts. You know,
That's awesome.
he's the guy greeting people at the door. He's the guy schmoozing the people as they come through, giving the whole history lessons. You know, really showcasing the venue, and I'm the one that makes sure that it turns on. You know,
Absolutely.
so it's a great. He and I have a great symbiotic working relationship. Yeah, it's, you know, you just reach out, and you know what's been really funny is a really big insurgence of tribute acts lately.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they sell.
Yeah.
People come because it's like, yeah, you're not going to get Rush at the Elmo, but you're going to get Permanent Waves, and they're awesome. And Neil Peart's family actually happens to come and see them play.
Oh,
That's
wow.
how good they are.
That's cool.
You know, so you do see like, you do see like people that are respectful of that and be like, you know what, I know I'm not going to get Rolling Stones maybe, but I can get the Blushing Brides,
Yeah, right.
who, in my opinion, are absolutely fantastic. Especially Mo, the frontman. I mean, he's like Mick reincarnate. I mean, not that he's dead, but it's like his evil twin.
We did some recently here at a venue in town. We did a bunch of tribute shows.
Yeah,
And they did really well. They were packed.
Yeah. Now I have gotten from booking being like, man, if I book one more tribute band, it's like, oh man, it's just because you don't want to overdo it either, you know. Like,
Well, yeah, you got to be careful you don't overdo it, because then people will not show up to the next one, right? Eventually.
yeah. You know what one we had recently? It wasn't a tribute. It was like a legacy band. Was the Lightfoot Band.
Oh, okay.
So all the players who played with Gordon.
Without Gordon.
But they brought in this wonderful guy from Florida named Andy, who I guess had, you know, been gallivanting with the band back in the days and could really play the material. He came in as the frontman, and they did their first show at the Elmo.
Wow.
And it was fantastic. They were
That's
really
really
good.
cool.
Yeah, they were really good. They did double play, so they played 2 nights. And yeah, they were excellent. We can't wait to have them back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me know when that happens. I'd
I
like
will.
to check that out.
Yeah, the Lightfoot Band. They were excellent.
That's really cool. How have things changed since you've sort of started on your journey? Because we talked earlier about, you know, when you started, you know, you started on an analog console, and, you know, now looking at the pictures of the Elmo, it's a little different world, you know, Grandam A3s and Digicos, and
Yeah.
but like in general, not just gear wise, but just in general, how have things changed? Because I know earlier you touched on, before we started the pod, you know, you sort of touched on how, you know, things aren't always as they sort of seem, and that, you know, that,
Yeah, it's, you know, it's an Instagram world now. Everybody thinks everything's peaches and roses, but, you know, you have to be willing to go through the hard times to get to the good times, you know. How have things changed? Well, I mean, when I first started, Napster had just peeked its face around the horizon. It wasn't really a thing, and everything changed. I mean, we went from, you know, $50,000 budgets to do an EP to nothing,
Right.
to get a Focusrite and a microphone and do it at your house and get 50,000 followers, and maybe we'll talk to you. So yeah, everything's changed, but I think as an industry, I think people have adapted really well. What else has changed? I mean, everything. It's still the same, but it's very different.
Yeah, it's more for sure. And you bring up the whole home recording thing, like,
Yeah, that's a huge thing.
that's another question I was going to ask you. Might as well talk about it now. Like, how, you know, is there still a place for big studios, and how is that, you know, sort of compared to doing the home recording thing? Because obviously, you know, you set up a studio at Jared's place even back then, and we're like, no, let's just do the drums here.
Yeah.
But obviously, he had you as a resource. And that's different. Not everybody has someone who's passionate, who understands how to get a room like that to sound acoustically proper. But do you still think there's a place for bigger studios? Because I mean, there's a lot of studios, even in the past 2-3 years during COVID, there's a lot of studios that especially in LA, that are gone, right?
I definitely think so. I mean, you know, I always say to people, if they want to get into doing a studio thing, the most important thing is you need to have an environment where you can make noise, and you need to have an environment where you're not gonna, people can feel free to create without outside influences like neighbors hitting against the wall, or, you know, cops showing up. You know, like you have to be able to feel free to create and express and sing that really loud note without feeling like you're going to get on anybody's nerves. I think that's really crucial. So yeah, I do definitely. I think that obviously it's going to get more and more limited. Like you're going to get people that will, and I've seen it even with working with Eddie, like working on big projects. It's like, okay, we're going to set up, we're going to track the beds, we're going to overdub everything over here, and that's just a part of the business now. I think that you can do a lot with a home studio, but it's kind of like, you know, you want to drive your Honda, or are you going to go rent a Lamborghini for a day? If you go rent a Lamborghini, you're going to have a hell of an experience, you know. Or you can drive your Honda, you'll get there. Yeah, right. You know, the other thing I think with especially to point on hiring a studio. You know, you're always going to get the guys like, oh, you know, our rate is X amount. And then, oh, but I can buy a microphone. Yeah, but you're going to spend 10 years learning how to use it. You know, I was saying to Essay recently, just before we started here, that, you know, they come for the gear and they stay for the engineer. Right. They come because you're equipped, and then they continue to stay because they realize, wow, I'm getting a lot done because this guy's flying the ship. Mm-hmm. Right? Absolutely. So I think for new artists, a lot of them, maybe there's probably some artists out there that have never even really been in a real studio, you know, like Charterhouse is a great space. You know, you got all the excellent gear, you got great microphones, you got good energy, you can freely make as much noise as you want to, but there might be people that have just never thought to, like, you know, what can I get accomplished there for $600? Probably a lot more than you will at home trying to hit record and run over to your guitar. Yeah, it's a different experience. You know? It's a completely different experience. I think there's benefits to both sides, but it's really affected how I've turned my career around. Like I said in the beginning, I was very focused on studio. I loved the studio, and I still do. But over time, you realize that the money is in live production. Yeah. Consistency, you know. Like, I think it was Essay, you were saying it earlier, right? Like, band goes in the studio, records, but now they're taking that on the road, and there's so much more live shows, right? Yeah, and you know what's also interesting is I used to get a lot of anxiety with projects. You know, oh God, how do I make that snare sound better? Or why doesn't this mesh? Like, mixing was just like, you know, tracking was one thing. Learning how to mix was like a giant hole that I threw myself into, you know. Like, I had a few kind of mentors kind of give me tips here and there, but like mostly it was like just try everything until you realize what works and what doesn't. And I think that, like, I used to get a lot of anxiety on like you get emotionally attached to a project, right? Mm-hmm. Which is a good thing, but if it's like somebody that came in through the door and, like, you know, it's some track that I'm really not interested in at all and I don't vibe with, and I'm just like, God, I don't want to do this, but I have to do it for the money. And then that will go out to the world and you're represented on that. And to me, that used to give me a lot of anxiety because it was never what I wanted to have my name represented on. Sure. Right. And so I found when I started stepping away from the studio, especially from a financial point of view, thinking like I need to make money with this, and getting into live production, all of that went away. I've never been happier and more stress-free in all my life, even though events can be stressful, but on a daily, hangout, like right now, like I have no stress on me. I'm not thinking about the snare drum or the vocal or this, or the mix on something that I did yesterday. that's all gone. Now it's like I run the show, I make it sound good, everybody leaves. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
You know, and you're not getting blood out of a stone, you know, which is another thing you're doing with musicians a lot, because, you know, I had a revelation and I was like, you know, I want to be able to work on what I want to work on and it not be about money. So I needed to get myself to that place, which I'm at now. And it took a while, but I said, you know, I'm not going to do anything studio for a while. I'm just going to focus on the other things that are making me money and making me happy, because, you know, they say money doesn't buy happiness, but it's important to have it.
Yeah,
you can get pretty unhappy if you don't have it. So now I'm at a place where, you know, when somebody contacts me, hey, are you interested? I'm actually mixing a great record right now by something. I'll get into that in a second. But somebody contacts me and I'm like, you know, honestly, send me what you have. I'd love to hear a rough mix. If I'm not feeling it and I don't feel I'm the best match for you for this project,
sure.
I won't agree to do it. And I'll just be honest with you before I hear anything. I may know somebody that might be able to help you, but I don't want to get myself into these situations where, especially like it's all about like, I need it yesterday. I cannot stand that point of view coming from musicians. It's like, who's after you? The Spotify police? Like get off your high horse. Honestly,
yeah.
Like release it when it's ready. Don't like push people and rush people to get. You know, it's not productive. It's not conducive to a good sound.
Yeah, you gotta have the right energy.
And you have to have the right energy going into it. So yeah, I kind of relinquished it all, and I said, you know what? And no expectations. I'm like, you know what? I'll spend a half a day on it. I'll get something rough happening. I'll send it over to you. If you think I'm on the right direction and you like what I'm doing, I'll carry on. If you don't, no problem. You don't owe me nothing. I owe you nothing. Just go to the next guy. And that has like changed my life, because it's not like, oh God, how can I got to get this mix. I need to pay my rent. Like, oof, that was horrible.
It's a definitely, from listening to the journey that you've had, you know, you've definitely sort of grown over your journey, right? And your life experience has allowed you to get to where you are now, to sort of be able to let some of that go, right?
For sure. And everything happened for a reason.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was all exactly as it should be. And what I'm doing now, I know will not be forever. I know that there's the next thing and the next thing and the next thing after that. And when that happens, I don't know. I'm pretty happy right now. I hope it's not anytime soon.
Yeah.
But at some point something will change.
Sure.
And what I've gained from this.
Well, you're getting married, so things are about to change.
Well, yes, but you're supposed to become a part of each other's world.
Absolutely.
No. Right? So, but career-wise, whatever the next thing is, I know everything that I'm learning right now is just going to transmute into what is needed for that. So, yeah.
Absolutely. How do you, I have a question. So people who are kind of coming up, you know, I mean, you worked with a lot of them in the early days when you were, you know, back in St. Thomas in the studio and stuff, and then even here at Charterhouse. Mm-hmm. From your perspective now in Toronto, I mean, there's a lot of, as you know, we have the students here at Fanshawe and OER, and there's, you know, there's Trebas, there's Humber, there's all kinds, you know, Metalworks, there's all kinds of schools in Toronto too. Mm-hmm. But you got all these students that are going to school to learn how to, you know, do audio, learn how to mix, learn how to record. Mm-hmm. A lot of them say, you know, I'm going to learn how to record my band. And then they're coming out and they're doing some stuff and it's cool, but they're coming up, right? And some of them are watching this pod and, you know, they're like, oh, you know, he works at the Alamo in Toronto. You should reach out to Andre. What, you know, you were gracious enough to sort of explain that you guys are more of a premium experience, which absolutely is true, especially looking at the gear. It's phenomenal. There sounds like a good vibrant scene in the city for places to play in that, but what does that look like in your perspective for artists now? You mentioned obviously social media. There's all kinds of factors now that weren't back then, right? When you were working with artists and doing that type of thing. And I don't know, did you dabble in some artist sort of development stuff too?
Yeah, I developed a few bands.
So what's your perspective right now? If someone is coming out of school, whether they're in London or Toronto or whatever, and they're like, oh, I got to go to Toronto. I got to make my band, you know, famous. Mm-hmm. I got to do, you know, the dream, right? Mm-hmm. What's your perspective on that? Like what are some things that you can let them know about that would be things they should do or things they should look for?
I mean, first of all, I'll commend them because it takes a lot of risk to have that and to go after that. And quite frankly, without that, none of this exists, right? It's like, where are producers without songwriters?
Right.
Where is live production without talent? So I wish them all the best, and I hope they actually pull something out of it. For like, are you referring to like a from a performance standpoint or from a like
Both.
both?
Just in general as a career, like as a career path, like,
Yeah.
you know, coming out of school, you went to Fanshawe, you know, you got this recording knowledge, you got some gear, hopefully from Music City.
Online.
Yeah, it's all good.
Worldwide.
But you know, and now they're like, yeah, I got to go to Toronto. Like that's the place to go, or somewhere close to Toronto and be able to come into town, right? But that's what they want to do, but they have no idea where to start. Kind of like what your situation was, right? Because you were like, yeah, I got to go to Toronto, but like I don't necessarily know anybody there. You knew everyone in the States, but you didn't know anyone in Toronto.
Yeah.
Like, what does that look like now?
You know, I learned from my dad and my mom, who, you know, my dad would, when he was running his roofing company, he would just drive up and down the street and he'd be like, they need a new roof. And he'd walk up, he'd knock on the door. If they didn't answer, he'd leave a card. You know, I think there's something really lost in the modern world. I was even listening to a radio broadcast about it recently, about how much social anxiety younger people are having, even from answering a phone call.
Absolutely.
I think that's a real problem, because for me, you could write me the nicest email in the world. You could have the best resume in the world. It matters, but it doesn't once I've sat down and had a chat with you. You know, I have some kids that are like, I have this one kid, I won't name names, but he's just coming out of Oyard. He's got a little bit of time left. And, you know, the other day, because his dad knows somebody that works at the venue, and they said, yo, he'd really love to just come shadow you. And I'm like, okay. And I got the kid a couple paid jobs already, because, you know what, the first day he came up, I went and I picked up a speaker. And without me even saying anything, he picked up the one beside it.
Wow. Yeah, that's big.
That's big.
That's big.
To not have to like tell somebody what to do all the time is a huge thing.
Yeah. Intuition.
So yeah, just like you see me lifting something and there's another one, even ask, do you want me to take that one too? Because maybe I don't want to move. But the fact that he just kind of was like, yep, you need one too? Yep. Boom. Was right behind me the whole time. I said that to him. I'm like, I want you to know, I don't care if you can wrap cable or not. We'll get there. You know, and he actually learned that really fast. But I'm like, that doesn't matter. What's more important to me, and I want you to know this because don't ever lose it, is the fact that when I grab that, you grab the one next to me. That shows me that you were taught well. And I think things like that is really important. You know, knowing how to wrap cable is really important as well, to touch a note on that.
Sure.
Again.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just having a good attitude. Now, as far as opening doors, I would say don't be afraid in the beginning to do even small stuff. Just anything to get experience and to get a little bit of, you know, walking money in your pocket is important. There's lots of companies there that are hiring general labor, just pushing cases, wrapping cable, that sort of stuff.
And there's never enough. There's never enough. No, I hear it all the time from some of the union houses and stuff. They're looking for people for shows because some of these shows are so huge, and the calls for the amount of people are so huge, and there's not enough people.
I think
to go
a
around.
problem with that is consistency, though, because people need consistency.
Yeah,
they need to feel like they're going to get so many hours a week, and they're going to be able to pay their bills, because otherwise they need to look elsewhere.
Absolutely.
You know, and I run into that even in slow months at the club. I'm like, look, I have to give some shifts to some people, because like we need to make sure that when we're busy that we have them.
Absolutely.
You know, it's important. So, and I would say, you know, there's like, when I was younger, even like FM 96, you know, we were talking about those guys earlier, and you know, when I was younger, I used to think, oh man, like how do I get something played on there? Right? If it was me right now, I would literally be the guy just walking right into the station. Like, hey, how's it going? Oh yeah, you got a minute? Okay, here's Boss Scotch. Yeah, we listen to this when you have a minute. Appreciate it. Thanks. Bye. You know, like something. Just don't be afraid to engage people and to open up doors and
Man, it's so
and just
true.
and have personal confidence. You know, don't be egomaniac. Don't be egotistical. Don't be a know-it-all, but have confidence in yourself that you're a good person, that you can do a good job for somebody. And I think that resonates.
Oh yeah, and it's rare. It's rare.
Yeah.
Like you talk about social anxiety, it's massive. You're
it's
so
bad.
right.
Yeah.
And having that personal confidence, it shines through now more than ever.
Yeah.
Right. And people like me and you see it. I interview everyone that works here, and I've been doing the interviews here for a while, and I see it. And I know, and I do my first interview here as a Zoom call for that reason, because like you said, I'll know, like, doesn't matter how good, exactly what you said. It doesn't matter how good your resume is. Doesn't matter how good your cover letter is. Doesn't even matter if you were recommended by somebody.
Yeah.
If I get you on that Zoom call, I'll know within minutes whether or not you are the right vibe for the energy that we have moving forward.
Yeah.
Because, you know, everybody, doesn't matter if you're a venue or a band or whatever in this industry, even what we do here, you're a team. Everybody's on a ship together. You're a team, and you're all moving in the same direction.
Right.
And you know, you have to add to that energy, right? You have to be willing to. That guy, case in point, the guy that picked up the monitor, right? He was vibing with your energy. He knew. He was like, "Yeah, I'm going to grab this monitor."
Yeah.
And so that's you can't teach that. You can't buy that. That's the will of the person, man. That's inside them. It's ingrained.
You could teach it. You just throw them on a construction site for a little while,
They'll either make it or they won't.
or they'll fly off the roof. Yeah,
I love that.
it's true. I honestly would say like
I
a
love
lot of
Only hire ex-construction workers. There
Hey.
you go.
It kind of goes hand in hand a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you're building your career and you're building houses.
It's very utilitarian, you know. We're like Batman. You know, you got your drill, you got your flashlight. You know.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think what was I missed my point there.
All good.
Anyway, yeah. we can move on.
You wanted to you mentioned to me you wanted to talk about some of the revelations. Have you touched on them all, or is there anything that you wanted to add?
Yeah,
Yeah?
I think so. Going back to your original question, just right now.
Sure.
To touch on it again, like, you know, people might look at what little information I have available online about myself. That's always something I've always struggled with. Just have a good biography or something. Anyway, you know, it might seem like, oh wow, he just got this tour with these huge guys, and then he went on to this and that. They're seeing like 4 talking points. You know, there's 1,000 different experiences in between each of those, and
Absolutely.
and every single one of those experiences, whether it was paid or not, was something I took a very, very important piece of gold from. And I think it's important, like if you're going to come fresh out of school and you're going to get into the scene, like I said before, don't be afraid to do the small stuff. Don't be afraid to get the coffee. Don't be afraid to push cases for a couple years. You know, don't be afraid to take risks on yourself and challenge yourself and go, you know what? This guy needs a PA system for this. Like, you know, like toss yourself to the wolves a little bit sometimes. You know, this is an industry that really thrives on that, because there is no golden rule book. There is no, I mean, there is more now, but like when I started, I subscribed to Recording Magazine and I read magazines. That's all I had. There was no YouTube.
Yeah, right.
Okay. There was none of that. It was figure it out, man. You know, it was a dark art still. Nowadays, yeah, you can go on YouTube University and you can learn quite a bit. That didn't exist in my day. It was like it was a dark art, figure it out. So, you know that every little experience that you do contributes. And, you know, the ability to understand the sound of a cell phone in your pocket through a guitar amp, or understand what digital, clocking errors sound like, or all these different things that constantly come up, knowing how to troubleshoot those things. That doesn't come because I read a lot of books. That comes because I experienced those problems before and I found solutions.
Yeah.
And you have to put yourself in every situation possible to do that, to get good.
Yeah, and it's the same in the live world. It's exactly
the
same.
same.
I come from
it's
that.
It's more
too.
so in the live world.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Things are happening in real time every minute of every show.
Yeah, like to blast your LED wall and all your LED lights at full white to program your RF. Who would think that would make a difference? But it does.
It does. Absolutely.
Yeah.
What's on the future horizons for you? What's going on?
I mean, honestly, right now I'm excited to just be married. We've been together 10 years and it's been amazing. We've gone through a lot of stuff together, and COVID didn't help. It kind of there was a lot of things that kind of set us back. It was never our intention to be together this long without being married. So we're just really excited about that. Career-wise, I'm not sure, man. I mean, honestly, I think I still have a long way to go. I have a lot to learn. I'm excited what happens next. I'm very happy with what I'm doing now. So like I said, I hope it carries on for as long as at least I want it to carry on. And I hope that it has a very long future for itself. But for now, I'm content. I think, every time I close my eyes and I think of what my retirement might look like, I see myself 6 months in the Caribbean, 6 months on a lake in Muskoka. So I don't know how I'm going to work my career around that.
Me and you were having the same dream,
That
buddy.
might be the biggest challenge of my life. Not sure how I'm going to do that. Residuals.
There you
Go. Yes, I got to figure that one out. But yeah, for now, I mean, am I going to go back out on the road? If I were to do touring, it would be because I caught the wind of somebody that comes to the club or somehow, and I'd go in for a couple weeks at a time.
Sure,
I'd go out with like David Foster. I'd go off with some big stuff, but just getting into that world is a whole thing. You know what? I have one other point I want to put across to people that are getting into the world too. And I think one of the most important things, both studio and live, is self-care.
It's huge.
I think it is so massive. It's not talked about enough. People joke around that oh yeah, I'm an audio engineer. I live on pizza. No. You can't do that to yourself.
Not forever.
Not forever. You're in a chair half the time. Okay. You need to be exercising. You need to focus on your diet. If you have as much time as you spend in a chair, divide that by 8 and go to the gym. Spend an hour a day at the gym just to unwind yourself or do something, Stay away from I went through a period of time where I was smoking pot, for example, thinking, oh yeah, everything sounds better. No, it is a career fucking tanker. Okay. It's not worth it. That's what I gathered out of it. I think at a certain point you think that all these, it's opening your ears and you're hearing things. Yeah, maybe that's true for the first month until it becomes the complete opposite of what you wanted it to be, and your ears get tired and your perspective gets shot, and you start to lean on these muses thinking that they're going to help you. They don't. All they do is really take more than they ever give.
Yeah, right.
And especially for somebody you're in a position where you need to make 1,000 creative decisions on a mix in an 8-hour period, and you don't want to be backstepping on too many of those. So things like that just don't help. I think associating muses and stuff with this craft, I think is foolish, but because I went through it.
Self-care for everyone is important.
Yeah, mental as well.
But
you're staring at a screen and you're listening to the same thing over and over and over. There were periods of time where I actually noticed that I was, even though my mind wasn't there, my physical being was emotionally affected by what I was listening to for the last 8 hours. Some kind of a ballad about heartbreak. I would take it home and I'd be wearing it on my sleeve, and it would just be like, what's wrong with you? And it's like, I don't know. And you'd have this weird confliction in your brain because your brain knows that you're not breaking up with your person, but your body is going through these emotions.
Yeah.
And it's weird, man. To learn to separate that is very tricky to do, to not get lost in the song. It's just a song. It's just a collection of notes and beats. It is not don't get lost in it. Get lost in the reverb tail for a minute,
right.
But don't get lost in the lyrics in the song. I went through that.
Wow.
Yeah, that was weird for me.
That's heavy, man.
Yeah, I'm an empathetic person though, so that's probably part of the reason, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, that's I guess all I have to say about that.
Well, there you go, man. Well, thanks so much for coming on the podcast, dude.
Yeah,
I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, that was great.
Awesome.
Hopefully you have something good out of
that.
Yeah,
well, it's all good. Hey, everybody, Ryan here. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. We'll see you on the next episode. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for watching Music City Live.
If you like this episode, like the video. And for more clips and episodes, subscribe to the channel. Feel free to join the conversation by commenting below and visit us at musiccityliveshow.com.